In a world where portals opened in the sky and giant monsters became part of everyday life, a new generation of warriors was born. Amidst this chaos, Yu Jaryong emerges, a tough kid, dungeon smuggler, and with a past that weighs more than any monster. Son of the legendary dragon hunter, he watched the hero he admired most wither away and be forgotten. Now, he lives between blows and illegal missions, facing adventurers, beasts, and even fate itself. Jaryong is the kind of guy who smiles in the middle of a brawl and doesn't take a step back, even when everything seems lost. And when destiny crosses his path with that of a stubborn rich girl, the fool discovers that maybe, just maybe, being a warrior is more than just fighting. In a beautiful school bathed in sunlight, two students talk about a lengthy exam. Suddenly, loud booms echo, and they watch military vehicles pass by, carrying calm and smiling students. The girls get excited seeing the boys in the cars. The boy with black hair comments that they are not adventurers, but students from a warrior academy, identified by a logo with a sword. In the past, blue portals appeared in the sky, releasing creatures that destroyed cities. Science discovered that a planet similar to Earth had shattered, and its fragments hit the planet, causing the so-called adhesion phenomenon. A gigantic tree was born from a shard, spreading magical energy and monsters across the Earth. As a result, 17% of the planet was taken over, forming the danger zone. Within it, a demonic creature called the Horn of Terror emerges, massacring a military squad. The last soldier tries to resist, but his bullets do not harm the monster. Wounded and powerless, he is thrown against the wall. Before being killed, he awakens a blue aura and holds back the creature's attack. Then, hope arises that humans could evolve beyond their natural limits. The limitations of the human species begin to break, and the soldier continues to hold the beast's attack. His stats rise rapidly, breaking the seal that limited him as a human. He awakens, shattering the chains that held him back from evolving. With growing strength, he easily lifts the monster. Using a judo throw, the soldier slams the creature to the ground, defeating it instantly. Many humans also awaken unique abilities, but few train them. An army of adventurers emerges, ready to face the horned demons that invaded Earth. The battle between humans and monsters marks the beginning of the era of dungeons and adventurers. The soldier who defeated the first monster becomes a legend, inspiring the world. Specialized academies emerge to train adventurers, with the most renowned being the Warrior Academy in Korea. Back at school, two friends discuss the dungeons. Girls scream upon seeing Diav Choi, a half-elf and famous prodigy. Jaryong, observing everything, prefers not to hang out with his peers, calmly saying goodbye. The young man with split hair asks his friend for sensitivity and questions the reason behind the boy's actions. In a flashback, we see Jaryong next to an elderly man on a hospital stretcher. In the present, he receives alerts, unpaid hospital bills, and a notification from his boss with a new job. Diav, looking at the audience, notices something strange about Jaryong and fixes his gaze on him. Our boy seems stressed and says he doesn't want to work. In the abandoned subway, he descends through a passage blocked by caution tape. His boss Jae-won introduces a new client, an arrogant and violent bald man who complains about the protagonist's appearance. The contractor demands a respectable professional and threatens Jae-won and Jaryong. The muscular bodyguard, Pilgyu, is called in. He appears to be a retired adventurer. Then the big guy threatens to break limbs to teach the boy a lesson, leaving the contractor satisfied. Jaryong reacts by pretending to be scared, then activates a blue aura and shows confidence. It is revealed that he has illegally entered the dungeon 371 times. The smuggling scheme of dungeons is then explained. Adventurers loot treasures, which should be inspected and taxed by the government. Some explorers bypass the system, hiding treasures and avoiding taxes, harming society. The illegal practice increases danger and fuels global criminal networks. The advertisement then ends by asking citizens to report smugglers. While boss Jae-won lights a cigarette, the bald client shows signs of nervousness. We return to the fight between Jaryong and the retired adventurer. Jae-won provokes the bald man, telling him not to back down, and the man reveals that Pilgyu was expelled for eliminating teammates. Our protagonist mocks the big guy, who becomes furious at the taunt. Pilgyu attacks, but the boy easily dodges, merely turning his face. Irritated, the man releases a green aura and charges again. Jaryong responds with a quick kick, hitting the opponent's chin and leaving him dazed. The boss watches calmly, while the bald man is impressed by the strength and precision of the blow. Jae-won confirms that Jaryong is the most skilled in his team. The boy taunts his opponent, saying he expected more from someone so strong. Blinded by rage, Pilgyu tears his shirt and reveals even more power. Jae-won identifies him as a tank. a role for adventurers who face monsters head-on in dungeons. Jaryong explains that after the adhesion phenomenon, humans awakened unique abilities. Each person has different talents, and Pilgyu masters the powers of endurance and brute strength. Trained tanks can withstand gunfire and missiles, being true human barriers. Jaryong recognizes Pilgyu's power, who advances after using all his buffs. The boy narrowly dodges as the impact destroys the subway floor. Jaewon saves the client from the blast's wind and reassures him despite the chaos around. Pilgyu continues the attack, convinced that Jaryong stands no chance. The protagonist, calmly analyzing, realizes the enemy's trap and refuses to fall for it. Jaehwan observes Pilgyu's brute strength, comparing it to that of a truck, and orders Jaryong to end the fight quickly. The boy notices a nearby metal beam, grabs it, and prepares to counterattack. As Pilgyu rages and charges with his aura overflowing, Jaryong identifies his weakness. He explains that tanks, although resilient, have a natural enemy, DPS, capable of concentrating all their strength on a single point. With the iron bar, Jaryong strikes the ex-adventurer's jaw with a devastating blow. Pilgyu spits ketchup and faints, falling defeated. The bald man watches in shock, while Jaewon remains calm in the face of his apprentice's overwhelming victory. Jaryong reflects that Pilgyu may have recognized his fighting style because he knew someone similar. That person was his father, Yu Seong, one of the most powerful and respected adventurers in the world. As a child, Jaryong admired him deeply and spent hours watching him train in the yard. Yu Seong was the first human to awaken powers and defeat a monster, becoming a legendary hero. In the past, he was part of the first generation of adventurers, pioneers who faced unknown creatures without any information about the dungeons. During a mission, Seong and his ally fight against the Gekomulith worm. The creature spits a green acid that dissolves Seong's companion before his eyes. Even with his corroded titanium spear, the warrior continues to fight and defeats the monster with sheer determination. The first generation risked everything, learning from mistakes and passing knowledge to the next generations. Over time, Yu Seong became known as the Dragon Slayer, the first man to take down a dragon. Recognized as the strongest adventurer in Asia, he became a symbol of strength and hope. But amid the peak of his power, Jaryong witnesses his hero spitting ketchup, marking the beginning of a personal tragedy. In the hospital, doctors informed that the cause of this sudden weakness and decline was poisoning, leaving the boy very emotional. Yu explains that during explorations, the great warrior encountered a deadly poison that contaminated him. And, as with any other time, his father tried to overcome it more than anything, facing challenges head-on. However, after decades of overworking, his body was already at its limit, and even that great dragon slayer could not endure. During the moment Seong was weak, the colleagues he trusted with his life arrived, handing the man a piece of paper. These people were disguised vipers who took advantage of Seong's vulnerability at that time and seized his fortune and work. For years, in addition to the illness, he suffered mentally and physically, thinking he had only made mistakes up to that point and that nothing he did was rewarded. Years passed, and even when our protagonist was already a teenager, he saw his father lying on a stretcher, his body already very weakened. And finally, Jaryong says that, years later, the world began to forget the dragon slayer Seong, and his father lost his identity as a hero. After losing everything and suffering from an incurable poison, for which no medical science could save him, all that remained as a reward for Yu was a forgotten adventurer. Thus, we return to the moment when Jaryong has just defeated Pilgyu. The boy simply stares at his opponent, then turns and starts walking away, while the man tries to murmur something. Our protagonist, after all the memories, becomes extremely irritated, throwing the piece of iron he was holding and walking toward the exit. The bald man is still shocked by everything he saw, as he thought his subordinate was the strongest man. However, Jaewon says that everything went well, but the man remains incredulous, not believing that his partner Pilgyu lost to a child. But our protagonist's boss says that probably the buffed one was not a good adventurer, so that might have been one of the reasons. Jaryong interjects, saying that the man was bragging about hitting his own colleagues, and that was just a sign of how weak that guy was. As he continues walking, passing by the bald man, the boy states that there are only two reasons why a good adventurer retreats. Either his body breaks to the point of no longer being able to explore or face creatures, or he dies during an exploration and is never seen again. Yu puts his coat back on, saying he didn't know what Pilgyu's salary was, but if it was more than minimum wage, it would be better for the bald guy to fire him. Seeing this as an opportunity, Jaehwan approaches his client, apologizing and asking the bald guy to understand their side. He then asserts that now the salary for the work would be double, according to the situation that occurred. However, the suited man was about to contest, but before he could, The boss of our protagonist makes a frightening expression, saying that the boy was the one who provoked first. He then mentions that he and Jaryong do not work for free, and seeing that he was not in the best situation for himself, the bald guy says he understood and that it was all right. After some time managing to extort his client, the boy's boss starts calling Jaryong. The man asks if he has heard of the Imperial Wasp, but Yu, upon hearing this while drinking water, immediately spits it out. Wiping the water from his mouth, Jaryong asks if they would have to fight against that, since even for him, that monster was a bit much. Jae-won explains that the Imperial Wasp is a monster whose danger level is considered the highest, not just in Korea, but worldwide. What was once a beautiful and lovely city called Uido is now the nest of the Imperial Wasp and has become a demonic realm in Korea, with extremely high difficulty. Then, the man explains that even for high-ranked adventurers, taking down one of these monsters is difficult, because these things go everywhere, so for any smuggler, it's practically suicide to fight against one of these creatures. However, for a white-ranked adventurer, it was extremely possible for them to accomplish this. Jae-won explains that, according to the bald guy, there was a pretty big raid the day before that wasn't publicized. The boss continues the explanation, mentioning that the government army and 7 white-ranked adventurers formed a strike squad to invade the Wasp's nest. Jaryong is shocked that they gathered 7 white-ranked adventurers, and Jae-won adds that adventurers of that level are so famous that if only 2 of them team up, the media goes crazy. With this challenge, it seems they failed to fulfill the original goal of eradication, but the adventurers managed to hunt the Queen Wasp. However, one of the 7 stole the royal jelly from the Imperial Wasp and ordered a subordinate from the strike squad to smuggle it. Jaryong looks confused, not knowing what this jelly is, and Jae-won starts to explain that it is a nutritional supplement that wasps give to a newborn queen. Struggling to understand the situation, Yu asks why a white-ranked adventurer would smuggle a nutritional supplement, since that was extremely dangerous. The boy's boss explains that there have been occasions when royal jelly was brought to that world and, as far as he knew, if a human ate that, they could even come back from the dead, and our protagonist, hearing this, is extremely shocked. In the underground of the city, in a deep subway, we hear someone say that all paths leading to the dungeons are already strictly controlled. This person begins to walk through those abandoned corridors, heading to a certain location, while repeating this phrase several times. It is revealed that this person was the boss of our protagonist, and the man says that this is not true. Looking at a gate with various red markings, the man thinks that this proves there is always a way to bypass the government's restrictions. With a blue aura around his hand, he begins to touch the gate, doing something to merge his magic with the markings. His energy reacts with that of the door, and, thus, a huge glow of blue energy emits throughout the place. The auras begin to merge with the markings that were there, and then something happens. The red markings start to disappear. Our protagonist was right behind his boss, and Jae-won tells the boy that even though he always says this, he will repeat it, then asking Jaryong to be careful. While cleaning his hands, he concludes that this job will be especially annoying and a bit more problematic than the others. For some reason, Yu had been silent the whole time, just listening and staying quiet. Trying to catch the boy's attention, Jae-won blows a bit of smoke generated by his cigarette into the young man's face. The young man starts to wave his hand to disperse the smoke and then asks why his boss is doing that all of a sudden. Jae-won explains that he did this because the boy had his head in the clouds and wasn't paying attention to the mission. The chief asks if the reason the young man is like that is because he is still thinking about the medication that can bring the dead back to life. Jaryong starts walking towards that gate while stating that it doesn't make sense, since things like that are really not reliable. Leaning against the immense gate, he thinks that, even if it is considered an unmatched antidote, it will not be able to cure his father's condition, and thus the young man begins to open that mysterious gate, from which a strong light starts to emanate. The boy also thinks that if there were something like that, his father would never have given up on the thread of hope. After opening the gate and passing through it, one can see the young man in a mountainous region, with a beautiful blue sky landscape. Jaryong tries to shield his eyes from the sunlight to be able to see the beautiful scenery in front of him. After the awakening, dungeons were created all over the vastness of the land, but among them, there are 2 considered the largest in Korea, and they are peculiar. The first is Jeju-do, a dungeon fused with a volcanic mountain range that has active volcanoes and flaming rocks. The other is fused with the Igar jungle, and at that moment, the young man was starting to prepare for an exploration. The Igar dungeon is located where Uido used to be, in the middle of Seoul, and that is where Yu was. Thus, one can see a destroyed city, already overtaken by a forest. The young man informs that, with Uido at the center, Mapo, Yongsan, and other nearby cities have all been controlled by this dungeon, and most of it remains unknown. A large part of the region is only rank D, but Uido, where the Vespa is located, is rank S, and the one responsible for the jelly tried to transport it to the meeting area in Boromai. Jaewon explains that, however, after arriving there, the transporter lost contact with the others, and perhaps the man fled, but that is not the most likely option. The chief also says that he must have dealt with all sorts of things to get out of there, and well, all our protagonist had to do was reach the location and bring back the jelly. But before Jaryong departs, Jaehwan mentions that he would finish his reasoning, asking the young man not to get distracted and just focus on the mission. Smiling as he puts on a mask, the boy asks if his chief thought he would run away. However, Jaewon firmly states that the boy was not an idiot to that extent. The chief also asks his subordinate to be careful and remember that the real jelly is precious and that humans are not the only ones willing to risk their lives to obtain it. After all of his chief's speech, the boy uses a rope to safely descend from the cliff in the middle of the forest. And there in the center, he thinks he was sure that the entire forest must be smelling that peculiar odor. However, looking at the ground, something catches his attention, leaving the young man astonished and irritated. In the soil of that forest, a huge footprint of a giant was there, and the boy asserts he is sure that many things will be attracted by the smell of the jelly. However, elsewhere, deeper within that vastness of trees and botany, several birds begin to fly. One can see a girl with pointed ears, extremely breathless, and running from something. The woman tries to stop for a moment to rest behind a tree in order to catch her breath. Her name was Jin Saram, and she was in her first year as a warrior. At that moment, she was facing the biggest problem of her entire life. This was supposed to be an easy trip to the dungeon for her intermediate test, but one can see that the girl was frozen and completely scared. Looking to the side, the young woman remains worried, and it is explained that instead of something easy as it should have been, she faced a monster that should never have been there. Then it is revealed that what was chasing the girl was a gigantic creature. Jin continues trying to stay quiet and still to see if she could escape from that beast that was trying to hunt her. However, a gust of wind begins to approach the girl, and the girl realizes something she did not want to. The test was supposed to be simple. Within the time limit, Jin had to collect as many coins as possible that had been placed inside the dungeon. And although it was a test used to simulate real combat situations, the testing area was of the lowest possible rank and should have been easy. This is because it was considered a training ground for beginners, which any adventurer just starting out could pass. The monster that was chasing Jin approaches silently, and when the girl realizes the beast was smiling right behind her, the woman becomes desperate and is informed that even the monsters living there were weak and had low intelligence, but that one was different. The giant with 4 arms and extreme strength tries to hit the girl. However, by a thread, she manages to escape. Jin thinks she should run, but looking at the size of that monster, she realizes that it was impossible, so she would have to make another decision. At that moment, the girl notices that all she had left was to wait for a miracle. Then, the young woman grabs her bow and takes 3 arrows from her quiver to try to arm herself. Despite all the difficulties, she decided to fight back. Then, the 3-star rank primate titan begins to prepare a monstrous breath. Jin, in a desperate attempt to save her life, fires 3 arrows at her enemy. To the girl's misfortune, the monster easily raises its hand to protect its face, managing to defend against the weak blow. The girl realizes that the titan's skin was tougher than a tank and that her chance of winning was almost nil. The primate then, with one of its 4 arms, quickly attacks the ground, sending another gust of wind and stones flying into the air. However, with her extreme skill and speed, the girl manages, once again, to escape and, still in the air, Jin prepares to shoot an arrow again. Jin thinks that it didn't matter how many arrows she shot, it was impossible to pierce the monster, but she had no other choice. Then, 3 more of her arrows fly towards the beast. Only this time, the projectiles were propelled by wind. Even superficially piercing the primate's body, the monster remains unfazed, maintaining an extremely frightening expression. Looking at that beast, the girl asserts in her thoughts that she didn't need to kill it with her attacks, and that it didn't need to dodge or block them. She just wanted it to come a little closer, and only wished for the monster to lower its guard for a single moment. The new arrow that Jin readied to shoot from her bow was filled with fire, and the girl was sure her plan would work. Upon landing on the ground, the girl adds more magic to her arrow, as she was a warrior of a class that imbued magic into the tips of arrows. And finally, determined and certain that she would survive there, the woman prepares to teach a lesson to the beast. With a powerful bow attack, Jin uses her flame bomber skill, shooting an arrow that tears through the ground. It is explained that the type of magic that can be imbued in the tip of an arrow had absolutely no limits. And what she decided to choose as a last resort was an explosion of the greatest magnitude she could manage. After hitting something, the arrow explodes, causing a huge flame that can be seen from all over the forest. The woman continues to stare at where she had launched her attack, trying to see if she had managed to defeat the beast. Even with everything, that attack should have been enough to kill any monster with a danger rank of 3 stars. However, the girl is completely frightened. After the smoke clears, the monster is atop 2 trees, clinging on, as it managed to dodge the attack. The monster, after managing to do that, barely retains a frightening expression, enraged by the audacity of its victim. And even using all its power, the attack would only be effective if it had hit its target. Several thoughts invade Jin's mind, and the girl begins to contemplate that she would die there, as she didn't know what to do. Before thinking that she needed to run, the monster lands on the ground, determined to put an end to the young woman once and for all. It quickly charges at her, and as an instant defense, Jin, desperate, runs in the opposite direction, trying to escape. The Titan continues with a psychopathic expression, just wanting to have fun with its victim who was in despair. However, like a miracle that came from the heavens, just as she wished, suddenly, our protagonist comes in with a weapon, striking the Titan. Looking at the sky, Jin is incredulous at what just happened. Still in the sky, Jaryong looks at the girl he just saved, while Jin remains astonished by everything that occurred. The giant that had taken a direct hit to the chin was still a bit dazed, trying to stay on its feet. Our protagonist manages to safely land atop a tree, and then thinks that, even hitting the beast in the chin, it didn't seem like enough. Looking down, the boy notices that the beast was staring at him with a terrifying expression. He pulls out a strange object from his pocket, something resembling a weapon, and it was an adventurer's tool. With his staff in one hand and the tool in the other, the boy charges into battle, determined to defeat that creature. Jin, witnessing the situation, is extremely impressed, as she never imagined that the young man was bold enough to attack the monster head-on. The girl thinks that the young man was heading for certain death, and the primate titan, irritated, lunges to attack the young man with 2 of its arms. Shouting loudly enough for the girl nearby to hear, Jaryong urges her to close her eyes immediately. Even so, the girl doesn't quite understand what he is talking about, and soon after, Yu points his tool at the monster's face. The beast and Yu are about to clash in a deadly attack, where only one of them would emerge alive. However, from the tool that Jaryong was holding, a strong light begins to emit, and the young man quickly closes his eyes. Right before the monster's eyes, a powerful light that illuminates much of the forest is emitted by the device, temporarily blinding the Titan. Seiram, who heard the advice from the unknown boy, quickly closes her eyes and puts her arm in front of her to avoid being blinded by the device. Meanwhile, the monster, unaware of this, is completely affected by the light that burst from the tool and goes straight into its eyes. The beast begins to roar in rage, and after that, our protagonist lands on the ground, thinking he used all the power of that utensil, even though it was the last one. What he was holding is called a stunning light and is a tool made from the scales of the oscillating fish that lives in dungeons at the bottom of the sea. It has an incredible ability called incapacitating, which delivers much compared to its price and has been loved by countless adventurers. However, due to its incredible performance, many people misused it, and several adventurers began to lose their sight. As a result, its production in the present day of that world was strictly banned and prohibited. Even with her eyes closed, due to the incredible range of the tool, being unaccustomed, Seiram begins to open her eyes slowly. Passing by her with his staff, Jaryong says he did all this for the girl, and that now she had to take care of her own life, as she only had a few seconds left. Our protagonist thinks that no matter what happens in the dungeon, as long as he doesn't do anything to the adventurer, he probably won't be reported. The boy remembers the moment when his boss said that, frankly, smugglers are like cockroaches to adventurers. Despite this, the rewards for them are very good, so if he acted thoughtlessly, he would be betrayed and handed over to the government. Therefore, he wouldn't do anything more. However, while running, the boy maintained a firm expression, but notices something behind him that stresses him out. The young man realizes that the girl from before was trying to follow him, and not knowing the girl's intentions, Jaryong complains. Even breathless, Jin does not give up on her goal and continues running after her savior to thank him. However, with all the lessons she learned about not being outsmarted, Yu makes a decision and quickly uses her incredible speed. Seiram, who was right behind him, notices that the boy somehow managed to escape her sight in a fraction of a second. Jin asserts that she was sure that young man was right there just now, but suddenly, the boy vanished. With her guard down, she is surprised by a staff that goes directly to her neck, pushing her back. Our protagonist pins the girl to the ground and tells her she was too foolish, then asks what she was doing. Seiram, innocently and without malice, explains that she just wanted to thank the boy for saving her. Coldly, Jaryong retorts, asking if the girl was joking, as he wasn't foolish enough to fall for that silly talk. Showing that she wasn't so innocent after all, Seiram informs him that she didn't chase him just for that, but because she knew he was a smuggler. However, she didn't want to capture him, but rather offer the young man a job. And hearing that, he falls silent for a moment. Seeing the symbol of the Warrior Academy emblazoned on the shirt the girl was wearing, Yu sighs, setting that aside. Removing his staff from the young woman's neck, the boy states that he intended to let this pass, but that it was her last chance to survive. Turning and starting to walk away, he says he also had no interest in learning from a student of the Warrior College. And, in an imposing manner never seen before, Jaryong threatens Jin, stating that he would truly bury the girl if she interfered with him again. The girl, understanding that this was a serious threat, remains silent for a while. Even so, she still doesn't give up, saying next that the bounty for a smuggler was 50 million and the bounty for hunters must be 400 million. Jaryong sees this as an affront and becomes completely enraged, even making veins bulge from his body. However, something makes him change his mind completely, and looking at the girl's hand, he sees something impressive. Saram was holding a necklace called Blood of Enkil, and Jin says he could buy that only if he caught 5 smugglers, which would amount to over 200 million wons. With that in her hands and sweating, she warns that this was just the initial payment, and that if Jaryong helped her with the exam, she would give even more money. Seeing the purchasing power of that girl, Yu comments that this was insane and thought the girl was just a spoiled brat. However, besides that, she was filthy rich and crazy. Obstinate with her goals, the girl retorts, stating that it wouldn't make a difference whether she was crazy or not. And, raising the necklace once again, the young woman asserts that what mattered was that this opportunity would change the life of our protagonist. Once again, he unexpectedly sighs, saying he imagined something like this would happen. The young man apologizes, stating that it was Jin's fault, and that he really had no reason to kill her, and hearing this, the girl is startled, questioning what he meant. A huge shadow begins to block the sun and leave them in darkness, and, looking up, the boy states that he had already warned. Jaryong says he mentioned that she only had a few seconds, and in the sky it is possible to see the primal beast leaping to capture the 2 young people after recovering from the flash. The monster, immediately furious, falls, smashing the ground with its 4 arms, but the 2 young people manage to escape. The girl suddenly sees something coming toward her and, opening her hand to grab it, realizes it is the same staff that our protagonist was using earlier. He warns that he didn't hand it to the young woman just to watch and asks if she remembers the attack she made earlier, and Jin recalls the moment she used fire on the arrow. Then, Jaryong asks the girl to do that again, conjure those flames on the staff, and throw it back to him. However, the girl panics, stating that she had no magical power left. Before Jin could say anything, our protagonist asserts that she had to figure it out. The monster prepares to attack again, and Jaryong warns that he won't be able to keep the Titan's attention for long just with his fists. Therefore, Jin needs to speed up. Saram begins to conjure her magic on the staff, but thinks she has less than a quarter of her magical power left, as she spent everything on her last strike. The battle between the Titan and the protagonist begins, and the young woman thinks that she couldn't deal any damage to that monster with so little power. So, instead, she should escape alone while the boy drew the attention of that thing, and Yu continues in an intense battle, trying to stay alive. Even a bit bothered, our protagonist keeps running, drawing the monster's attention. And before he knows it, with extreme speed and precision, his flaming staff comes flying toward him, and the young man manages to catch it. The girl, after using everything she had left and throwing the staff, thinks that she really was crazy to risk so much just for one person. With that, Jaryong leaps into the air and begins to spin with his staff, then stating that he was disappointed. The boy says that this was much less than a quarter of what she had used before, and that it was truly disappointing. However, he thought it should be enough now. And confidently, the young man wields his staff, then charges to attack the monster. The battle returns to its peak, and at that moment, Saram thinks that the students of the Warrior College have heard this more times than they can count. Analyzing that incredible battle, the girl states that, in a fight with a monster, the most important thing for the adventurer is not just to use brute force. The most important thing is to have a sense of timing. And at that moment, our protagonist was doing this perfectly, dodging attacks and waiting for the right moment. The most important thing was to take advantage of the perfect timing to aim precisely for the attacks, and at that moment, the primal titan misses its attack, becoming exposed. In other words, what adventurers must value above all is the effectiveness of the attack, and at that moment, Jin was impressed with Yu's skill. Yu, after dodging all the attacks from the primal titan and using perfect timing, takes the opportunity to strike the monster on the chin with his staff. An explosion occurs and, after it disperses, the beast is left with its jaw completely disfigured and its face destroyed. The glasses Jaryong was wearing shattered, but upon realizing that his attack had indeed been effective and that he had won, the boy breaks into a small smile. In a flashback, a beautiful school can be seen illuminated by the rays of the sunset on the horizon. Little Jin had just finished playing with her friends, Seram notices that, in front of her, a bodyguard is waiting with a car ready to take her home. Then, the girl quickly bids farewell to her friends, and they arrange to meet the next day to play again. However, the girl overhears some gossip where her own friends are saying that she was very lucky to have whatever she wanted. Jin thinks they weren't entirely wrong, as she could indeed have almost everything she saw due to her social status. Since her father owned a South Korean company ranked 4th, the Jinseong Group, which was globally recognized and highly esteemed, the successor of the group married an elf from another world, and from that relationship something emerged that would leave a mark on that world. And the result was Jin Seram, a little half-elf girl with dark hair, determined to pursue her desires. She respected adventurers more than anyone and even admired them, seeing them as inspirations. Jin dreamed of becoming an adventurer more than anyone else, and the girl was willing to give up everything to follow her dream. In the future, shortly after that flashback, a blonde elf can be seen saying that something was impossible. Jin was completely exhausted and tired on the ground, and at that moment, the blonde says that the girl's elven blood was very weak and that she could very well be mostly human. The blonde tells someone next to him that, despite this, continuing to push the girl was very wrong and that it would be better to convince her otherwise. Then, Seram's father, Jin Sung-gyu, says that he was not forcing the young girl to do anything, just supporting her, as the girl dreamed of being an adventurer. He adds that it's not as if an elf's talents were requirements to become an adventurer, and the elf in front of him agrees. He then asserts that compared to a human, the girl indeed had a considerably good talent, but despite that, she was still just a bit above average, and even with her effort, she would not be rewarded. The blonde says he would clarify one thing to Seung, since his daughter was not just a human from a normal family, so she would not give up on her own, and she was as stubborn as her mother, who is the sister of the blonde elf who was saying that. However, even so, the young man is cold and says that, despite the efforts, the girl will never be strong compared to monster-ranked humans. However, if she keeps trying and getting up every time she falls, she might become somewhat decent. And once again there is a time jump showing Jin as a teenager. The elf concludes the sentence by telling Seung that, with her effort, it will be enough for the girl to gain praise and recognition as a normal human being. Still, his daughter was born with many other advantages compared to her lack of talent, such as prosperity, name, and bloodline. These things will make her efforts useless, regardless of how much the young girl trains. There are things that cannot be achieved. People will laugh at her out of envy, and she may become completely isolated, as they will see the young girl as just a spoiled little girl. And one thing is certain, even though Jin is extremely strong, she won't be able to handle this for long, as social loneliness is something that destroys anyone. Since talent is not something that falls from the sky, we can return to the moment when Jaryong defeated his enemy. Jin, who was watching that scene, is completely stunned after so many events happening at once in front of her. When our protagonist finally lands, the body of the monster he just defeated also falls, making a huge crash in the forest. The beast was completely destroyed and defeated after receiving that powerful blow right to its face. With a staff in his hand, our protagonist walks normally until something scratches his ear and catches his attention. Looking to the side, for some reason, he sees Jin, who was completely shocked as if she were seeing a ghost. Looking at the young man's face, the girl claims that it was impossible, thinking that her savior was the age of a high school teenager. And after placing his hand on his face, the young man finally realizes what had happened, becoming extremely irritated for being careless. In a memory, we see Jaehwan asking Jaryong to be careful not to break the glasses, as they were quite expensive. With a strange pair of glasses in his hand, Yu comments that it must cost around 5,000 wons, as it looks like a common item. However, his boss denies it, commenting that those glasses prevent facial recognition and alter the voice of the wearer, in addition to having more than 4 magical spells on them. Back in the present, the expensive glasses were completely broken on the floor after Jaryong had delivered that attack. Placing his hand over his face, the boy states that things were not going as he wanted and that it was annoying. The young girl, still confused, asks if the boy was a senior at the warrior school. However, irritated with everything that was happening that day, as the boy just wanted a normal mission, Jaryong responds rudely that he was not. Then, with extreme anger and veins bulging on his face, Yu orders the young girl to hand over what she had promised. Unusually, without hesitation, she quickly hands the necklace to the boy, leaving him surprised at how easy that was. He gets annoyed that Jin is someone rich and quickly takes the jewel from the girl's hand before she could even look properly. With it in his hand, Jaryong begins to analyze it deeply, and after a glance, he states that it was not fake. Once again, catching the young man's attention with what he wanted to hear, Jin asks if the boy needed more money. She says she understands that, even if he doesn't go to the warrior school, the tuition at the Adventurer Education Center is quite high. However, before she could offer to pay his tuition, the young man explains that he was not from any adventurer school. The girl is even more astonished, and he replies that she was completely mistaken in what she was thinking. Jaryong explains that he does not go to any adventurer school and has never even been close to one. On the contrary, he studied at a regular school. The girl then asks who taught the young man to fight, and Yu replies that no one taught him. Approaching her with both hands in his pockets and a serious expression as if he were not lying, he states that he learned by himself. This time, it is Jin who gets irritated, and the girl, shouting loudly, says that it was an outrageous nonsense. The girl begins to say that his movements and sense of timing were not those of someone who had never had training, and Jaryong must be joking. However, rudely and not at all chivalrously, something flies towards the girl, hitting her face. Seeing that Jaryong had thrown something at her face, she catches it with her hand and asks what it was. But, after analyzing, Saram realizes that it was a school ID, and as she takes the identity out of the plastic, she begins to examine the information of her savior. Seeing that card, she realizes that the paper belonged to Donggang Secondary School, and sees that our protagonist's name was Yu Jaryong. Jaryong says she didn't need to strain to remember, as that school was just another common one among others that exist in that country. After so many simply unbelievable events, the girl was about to have a breakdown, stating that it was impossible. Yu, not wanting to come out on the losing end, points his staff at the girl and orders her to hand over something that proves her identity, be it a student ID or something like that. After receiving it, the young man begins to read and notices that the girl's name was Jin Saram, then analyzing whether the paper was fake. Our protagonist also states that the girl was the same age as him, seeing that the young woman really belonged to the warrior school. For some reason, he puts that identity in his pocket, and Jin asks why he was doing that. Jaryong, confused, states that, at that moment, the girl had made a proposal, and that was why he could not take the risk. Because her identity had been revealed, so if he were to take on a mission for Jin, he needed some guarantee that he would not be betrayed by the girl. And on top of that, Jaryong mentions that he would not do a job without taking the necessary precautions, then commenting that he would still do one more thing. The young man pulls out his phone and suddenly hugs Jin from the side, placing his hand on her shoulder, making the girl very shy. Yu explains that he would take a selfie with the girl, as if she turned him in. That photo would serve as proof that Jin was also an accomplice of a smuggler. While the two take the photo, the girl remains shocked, and at that moment, Jaryong realizes that she might have done something wrong. At that exact moment, with a frightening expression, our protagonist asks her to smile for the photo, and it was really at that instant that she realized she had gotten involved with someone more dangerous than she could ever imagine. Giving small forced giggles, the girl puts on a fake smile for the camera, but it was too late to back out. Everything had already begun, and thus Jaryong takes a photo with Jin next to the Titan's corpse. After taking the selfie, the boy continued staring at the phone screen to ensure everything was right in the image. The young man then comments to Jin that they should start discussing prices and asks what exactly the girl wants. Saram, who was still processing the young man's personality, states that his mission was to collect coins. Jin explains that, within the 6-hour limit, she must collect coins that were placed in various locations throughout the center of that test. Her goal was to find a box that contained a coin in a certain location to prove that she was a student of the warrior school. The girl also states that she had already picked up one coin and, therefore, only needed to get one more to pass the school's test. Finally, Jin concludes the explanation by informing her that the box containing the last necessary coin was quite close, and our protagonist asks where it was. The girl says that the box was located in the ruins of the old Eugene Mall, and upon hearing this, the boy is surprised. As if he had discovered something, Jaryong comments that he understood everything, but Jin finds the young man's reaction strange. Seeing this, Jaryong decides to explain that he realized their meeting was not a coincidence, as what he was looking for was also in the mall. After Yu gives a brief explanation about the mission he was fulfilling, the young woman is incredulous, shouting that she couldn't believe the boy was after the Imperial Wasp. Having explained incorrectly, the boy corrects himself, stating that he was not after the wasp, but rather something like its honey or jelly, though he couldn't say exactly. Jaryong comments that, apparently, this jelly had a very strong smell that attracted monsters, and the primal titan was probably drawn by the honey as well. Our protagonist asserts that it didn't matter much, but he asks if the girl really needed to go to the mall, also asking if there was no other place with coins. Anxious and with her head down, the girl informs him that this was the only place with the coin now, as the other groups must have already taken all the other boxes. The young man, hearing this, simply stares at the girl and, upon hearing about the groups, tells himself that he understood why the girl was alone. Then, determined to help, Jin Jaryong says that it was all right and that it was more convenient for him this way. Yu comments to Jin that they would enter the place, grab the coin and the jelly, and then leave in complete safety. The boy was also going to state the amount he would charge. However, the girl, who was already set on her goal, says she would pay 950 million wons. Jin says that was the only money she had. However, upon hearing that immense amount, our protagonist is very impressed with the fortune that girl had. Seiram adds that if that wasn't enough, she would just need a little more time. But before she could continue, Yu interrupts, saying that it was sufficient. Turning to start walking towards their goal, the boy says he would charge more if there was any emergency. However, if the plan went well, that amount would be enough. The boy asks if the girl had enough stamina to run now, and she promptly nods her head, saying yes. They immediately start a quick run into the forest, aiming to reach their objective. The young woman, who is a bit behind and completely out of breath, analyzes Yu running easily ahead of her and thinks that the boy was very fast. Our protagonist, while running, sighs, thinking that he accepted the proposal too quickly and should have asked for more money, as the girl seemed rich. During the run, Jin shouts, asking if he could ask a specific question to the girl. With a bored expression, he allows the girl to ask her question, and then she asks if he really learned everything by himself. Surprising the girl, he replies that not everything, but the vast majority was just training alone. During the course, he begins to explain his past, stating that when he was a child. However, before he could finish his sentence, the boy perceives a danger, and right in front of him, two strange beings, resembling aliens, are hunting a prey. The name of that beast is Gararaptor, and it is a native species from where Boromai Dong once was. So, seeing this, Yu asks Jin to prepare for the fight. She, who is running quickly, breaks, draws her bow, and gets ready to attack the beasts. Surprising her with an absurd speed, Jaryong doesn't even wait for Jin and charges directly at the beasts. It is explained that Jaryong never had official training as an adventurer, and the skill he has now was acquired by risking his life. But there is one single exception, as when he was younger, he witnessed his father's incredible movements, and that allowed him to learn 3 moves. Approaching the monster with his staff, Jaryong charges at the Gararaptor. The first of these moves is the needle, in which he uses all his speed and weight to strike a vital point of his opponent, and at this moment, the boy does the same. This is a simple move, but not quite, that he gained through his experience, senses, and, above all, his talent. This is a technique that even the top ranks have not mastered. However, it was perfectly mastered by Jaryong, who with just that strike defeated the first of the monsters. Being a 2-star monster, the other was easily defeated by Jin, who only received a few scratches. Returning to put away her bow, Seiram says that all of this is strange, since Gararaptors usually travel in groups of at least 5 creatures. Jaryong, upon hearing this, informs the girl that this means it wasn't just her who was affected by the smell of the royal jelly. Probably, all kinds of monsters could be nearby, and thus it is possible to see that they have already approached the city where the mall is located. Noticing that the girl wasn't doing so well, Yu asks them to take a quick break and then move on. Returning to the previous topic, the girl asks if he had any kind of personal training when he was younger. And once again, Yu replies that no, he only watched someone training and, thus, managed to copy that person's movements. However, in compensation for trying to be stealthy and not being noticed by that person, he only learned a few specific moves. Not receiving this question often in his life, he asks why the girl is so curious about it. Instead of answering, Jin becomes extremely irritated, stating that after that, she really didn't like the boy. Suddenly, the young girl throws something in Jaryong's direction, which he quickly catches and doesn't understand what it was. But upon analyzing, he sees that it was a stamina vial that was extremely expensive, and seeing this, Yu asks if the girl was really going to give that away for free. Jin tells the boy to drink the liquid, as he probably wasn't in his original condition due to fatigue. However, the boy asserts that Jin just mentioned she didn't like him, but then gave a gift, so the young girl had no word. Yet, surprising the girl, the boy starts to put the vial in his pocket, and Seiram asks why he is doing such a thing. Jaryong replies that he wasn't going to drink it, as he could sell it later, making Seiram even angrier. She starts to argue with Jaryong, saying that it had a very high value and that he should just take it. Even so, the boy says he knew the value of that object and that if he sold it to the black market, he would receive a good amount of money. The young girl starts mentally cursing the boy, thinking he was strange and extremely weird, but that was what she had. Changing his mind, Jaryong states that she wouldn't need to rest since she drank that, so they should already set off on the adventure, and thus the two do. Seeing that the girl was still a bit stationary, pondering everything, the boy thinks that rich kids are extremely strange and don't care much about money. After that, the two approach the mall, and Jaryong comments that Jin already knew about it, but that they would review the plan one more time to be sure. Yu states that their objective was not to hunt any monster, but to grab what they needed and leave there immediately. Completing that, it didn't matter how many monsters were inside, she was to always follow his instructions and keep her composure, despite everything. And finally, Jaryong says he was sure the girl had learned a lot, but his specialty was survival, and she just needed to trust him. However, for some reason, Jin was acting strangely and didn't realize what was causing the weird feelings she was experiencing. Last semester, the young girl was a stranger at the warrior school, not recognized by others and generally excluded. However, this was the first time she ventured into danger with a companion who did not underestimate her, and thus Jaryong stands up, asserting that they should leave. The girl remains a bit apprehensive, as she is about to face imminent danger. It is possible to see that the two are facing an old shopping mall that is overtaken by vegetation. Inside, everything is dark and destroyed, as the forest and trees have completely dominated the area. But something happens that not only frightens Jin, but also Jaryong, and both go on high alert. An overwhelming pressure begins to envelop the two boys, and Jin asks what that is, but even Jaryong does not know, as he has never seen anything like it in his life. Looking ahead, the two notice several dismembered monster bodies, and whoever did that was extremely powerful. Humans are beings that can be braver than they think they are capable of, and if they are properly motivated, they can withstand any situation. The only hindrance to this are events that are outside the scope of the initial planning. Those monsters are not from this area. They are dangerous even for professional explorers. Seeing the carnage, they can't even imagine what might be there. The boy tells her not to lose focus in her mind. There is something very dangerous there, and it's not as if she didn't know that. She was just surprised because the scene is scarier than she imagined, but so far, nothing has changed. As soon as he finished speaking, she saw something in the shadows. There was a silhouette moving. In response, the boy brandished his spear. The creature rises. It is a slasher lip, with a danger level between 2 and 3 stars. Without wasting time, he charged toward the creature. Its mouth began to open, revealing something. It is a huge tongue, now heading toward the boy. Quickly, he managed to defend against the attack using the staff. However, he felt that something was different. The creature managed to grab his weapon with its tongue. Taking advantage of the contact between them, it retracted its member. With the force exerted, he ended up being pulled along with the staff. Before getting closer to the creature, he let it go. If he hadn't done that, he would be in its jaws. From above and in safety, he looks at the monster once more. Leaving his position, he prepares to deliver a kick. The attack was precise. He managed to hit. From a distance, the girl watches closely, waiting for the right moment to strike. Calmly, he picks up the staff from the ground. That was frightening for her, and she didn't expect that creature to be alive when they got there. But its survival ability is high. But the boy says it's not just that. He left it alive longer on purpose. If someone arrives there, it will serve as a warning. That creature tends to scream to call allies whenever it senses its life is in danger. The girl didn't understand and wants to know who he wants to warn with the alarm. It's for himself, as he can't just wait around. Another figure appears, saying he had a lot to clean up, and that after that he ended up a bit exhausted. The girl knows this is another explorer. The boy is very apprehensive, and she wants to know if they know each other. The one who arrived says that this is not very normal. These two are too new to be smugglers. Looking more closely at them, he saw a crest on the girl's garment. In the blink of an eye, he had disappeared. Now he is on the ground facing them, asking if they are from the warrior school. Answering the question, the girl says yes. If that's the case, he can't even say what kind of team they are, but it's a shame, because they are going to end up dying in that place. Hearing this, the girl was terrified. The boy asked why she was paying attention to those words. That person is not a normal explorer, as she must imagine. He is a villain who came to kill him and steal the royal jelly. So he says he shouldn't have contact with his commissioner and that he shouldn't touch his things without permission. But he says he only needs to deal with the consequences of his actions if he gets caught. And that, so far, he has been very lucky. He heard that his companion was smuggling a valuable item. The plan was to ambush him on the way, but things ended up happening differently. He failed in the task of exterminating them. He confirmed that he had entered there, but he hasn't managed to find him yet. But he imagines that he must be hiding somewhere that the smugglers use. Hearing this, the boy realized that this is the reason why contact was cut off with the smuggling center, and not because of the wasp's poison. It was all the work of that guy who just showed up, even without having started to fight. Jaryong could already feel the situation. That opponent would be tough, and he even suggested he could provide a painless death if they cooperated. This man is certainly ranked higher than the weirdo they encountered earlier. Jaryong tells the girl to find the coins and run, as he would buy them some time. With that guy's feats, there shouldn't be many monsters left, and she should flee quickly. While he was still talking to her, the weirdo had begun his attack. Although it had been abnormally fast, his sword missed the target. Now the boy reinforces the command for her to run and stop being an idiot. For them to get money, it's necessary for her to be safe. Seeing her leave, the weirdo gets upset. Furious, he said that wasn't a wise decision. Working together until now had given them a better chance of survival. But the boy wasn't thinking about that right now. Postured, he began to channel his power. In his eyes there was only focus and determination. His staff was wielded with mastery and violence. This scared the weirdo, who realized his movements had been telegraphed. Now, something was coming toward his face. It was the sole of Jaryong's foot, which had stomped on his face furiously. The weirdo's body flew from the impact, but the boy knew that things were still not over. He heard the weirdo say he was surprised by what had happened. Indeed, he had underestimated them for being young, but now he would use his equipment. Even though young, he is better than the average professional, so the weirdo would have to get more serious. Then he told him not to be scared, as it would be quick. This is Yang Dugyun, a gold-class adventurer. The ground is broken, with several cracks. The kettle was heated and someone said that it wasn't bad at all. In fact, his instant noodles were very good. Looking at the bald man, he offered him some, but he ended up refusing. He should at least sit down. It would take a while for the guy to wake up from his beauty sleep. The bald man is outraged, as he pays a lot of money for the guy who is sleeping in the middle of his shift. He walked around all arrogant, saying he had been an adventurer. The other man told him not to be so harsh. He didn't lose because he was bad, he lost because he had to. What people ignore is that adventurers don't just fight humans. That guy must have been trained to hunt and explore, not to fight another person. Not being used to this, it's expected that he would lose to a smuggler. The bald man is outraged and says that even among adventurers, he has heard different things. And indeed, among them, there are those who fight a lot among themselves. The better they get, the greater the rewards, and the fights become inevitable. Even companions end up succumbing to greed and betray their colleagues. Hearing that, the bald man didn't want to believe that they killed each other, but there is no one to stop them. Not to mention that there are no rules inside the dungeons. Just say that a monster killed him. That doesn't even require an alibi. Indeed, the higher their rank, the more they need to prepare to fight others. But things are not that simple. The class of the sleeper was not high enough, which is why he is on the ground now. Attacking a companion? Well, that's cute. And if he was caught, it means that a calm fight happened outside the dungeon. It was certainly a discussion without equipment, but the bald man doesn't know what equipment is. They are the weapons and armor that the adventurer takes into the dungeon, even if they are insignificant. With them, even the sleeper could have put up more of a fight. They are strong enough to make a difference. The equipment is half of an adventurer's fighting skill. He knows that the weirdo didn't dodge his attack. That blow was precise and forceful. It hit him squarely. The blade has a high defense. While he was thinking, the weirdo told him not to get distracted. Facing the imminent blow, he blocks the contact with his staff. Being distracted is not very respectful on his part, neither to his opponent nor to his life, which can end in the blink of an eye. Taking advantage of the moment, he strikes the boy's stomach with a kick. The blow was very strong, and he was thrown several meters. Before he could crash into something, he stopped his advance by putting his feet on the ground. As soon as he stopped, the weirdo was already on top of him once again, and he delivered several cuts with his blade. Unable to defend against all of them, some small cuts found their way to his body. A small wound is on his cheek. The weirdo is now quite confident and taunted him, telling him to fight like before, if he was able. This is impossible. The shadow jacket is an A-rank armor, and the weirdo has one. It uses the user's blood to enhance defense against physical damage, as well as increase strength. That weirdo, at this very moment, is using berserker combat. It will be hard to find openings, but not impossible. However, if he tries to make a poorly planned counterattack, he will die, without a doubt. The fight continues, and the weirdo is out of control. A swift cut was made at the abdomen. This caused the boy to panic, and the weirdo says he fell for his feint. Even so, he had lasted a long time. However, that was not what he expected to see. The boy asks him if today is some special day. Taking off the jacket he was wearing, he stood up and said he really liked the weirdo's jacket. Despite everything, that guy isn't as strong as he imagined. He had been startled because he has a huge aura, but if he didn't do more than that against an unarmed student, he must be a mediocre who relies on it. If the boy had a jacket like that, hearing those words hit the weirdo's ego hard. He started shouting uncontrollably and said the boy would pay for his insolence. Jaryong knows that the one who needs to hurry there is not him. His opponent has to win the fight, find Sairam, and finish her off. The advantage is his if he keeps stretching the time of that fight. This will make the weirdo impatient. And Jaryong is well aware of that. His focus and concentration are all on that objective. The weirdo charges furiously to end the fight. Before him, the boy prepares to defend himself. The clash between the weapons is powerful and emanates aura from both. When he was just a little snot-nosed kid, he learned this just by watching. This is the second technique. A vortex of blue aura appeared between them. His strength is too little for this, so he needs the enemy's strength to use it against him and inflict an attack he couldn't do alone. The name of this technique that he hasn't even perfected yet is inflate, and it is devastating in effect. That singular blow had been very powerful. The explosion that formed with the impact is enormous. He now rests his staff on the ground. His insides are injured. The technique took a heavy toll. He never imagined he would use that in a real fight. It didn't even cross his mind. And to think that a professional adventurer would be someone who only attacked by charging forward and nothing more. He invites the weirdo to give up, as his time has run out. Drawing a dagger, he tells the boy to shut his little mouth. His hands are trembling, as if they are fearful. Unexpectedly, he stabs his own chest with it. The boy did not expect that. But the weirdo said that no matter what happens, he would make sure of one thing: to kill that brat. On the 5th floor of the department store, something happens. Sairam seems to have reached her destination. She had come across a box. Then she placed her hand on the bluish circle. The box confirms her identification number and her identity. Now that she has found it, all she needs to do is return. Suddenly, she feels something different in the air. She looks back to observe. She remembered what Jaryong had told her, to run away, because she needed to be okay. Only then could they get money. She was now thinking that nothing would change even if she fled. The effort to believe those words is enormous. In her mind, only the weirdo's face appeared. Surely he wouldn't fight if he didn't know a way to escape. Now, she contemplates the choices she can make. The weirdo liked to bully at school. It was one of his favorite pastimes. Indeed, he was a genius. Since he was little, he felt that everything in his life would be easy, because he was quite talented, obviously. The recognition from adults was just a consequence, just like being the dominant figure among his peers. But there was a complication back then, an achievement he couldn't reach. He had been rejected by the warrior school. As consolation, he believed they made political choices, favoring money over talent. For him, it's the only possible explanation, because if it were based solely on talent and skill, there's no way he wouldn't be accepted there. In a challenge test, he had placed first. Compared to the average of the youths, he was not only a genius but well above them. Once again, he had been well ranked. This didn't even surprise his peers. But he liked knowing he had become a topic of conversation. Now they were facing the last task before graduation. After the graduation ceremony, someone appeared. The principal congratulated him and said he would be an excellent adventurer. As advice, he told him not to become vain and always keep moving forward. Listening, he could only think that in front of him was a trash that retired early and now has a mediocre job. He was determined to rub it in his face. He would reach a place in life that people like the director only dream of. Now he is thrown on the floor of a dungeon, terrified. The one who rescued him said he came quickly because he thought the situation was dangerous, but he didn't expect it to be such a weak monster. That monster alone killed his entire team, without difficulty. They were no match for reality. The adventurer stared at him, a look that is familiar to him. It was the same one he gave to other people. It was at that moment he realized. The old man's words were not advice. They were words of comfort about his future. He was not a chosen one. He was just better than the average person. The mediocre looked at him, but he was only a little better than them. That jacket was made entirely from a living vampire, and he allowed all its blood to go to his heart. That is the price for him to kill the boy. In response, he asks if he is sure about that, as this little game seems like it will give him a hangover. But the weirdo advances, without hesitation. The force of the impact is violent. Despite the change, his speed had not increased much. Only his appearance, which is horrific. The attacks are strong and unpredictable. To the boy's surprise, the weirdo's arm is now outstretched. Of the various unexpected things of the day, this is yet another. Blood drips on the floor of the place. The weirdo looks at his victim, who is panting. His posture is defensive, but he is finished. Somehow he had managed to block the attack. Indeed, good reaction speed and a lot of talent. The weirdo wants to know why he became a smuggler, but the boy did not understand the question. Opening something with his mouth, he asked what was with that sudden compliment. Because what he does with his life is none of his business. Regardless of what the answer is, the weirdo thanks him. Thanks to the boy, he will now be able to step on a talented person. Excited, he prepares to fulfill a dream. However, the boy will not let that happen so easily. Despite the damage suffered, his body moves without any problem. In light of this, the weirdo becomes even more excited and wants him to show even more talent. The boy knows that this horrific form cannot be maintained for long. If his fuel is blood, it is obvious that one day there will be a limit. Thus, he can provoke him to use even more blood and use the needle. But the weirdo is already aware of what might happen. Now, it was too late for the boy. The weirdo is almost landing another blow. Unexpectedly, a blazing explosion occurs above his shoulder. The boy looks to the side to see what had happened. His friend had returned to help him. Smiling at her, he did not imagine this would happen. Indeed, she does not hear anything he says. Her behavior is very touching sometimes. With the weirdo within reach of his baton, he struck him once more. There are only ruins in the entire place. The emptiness is filled only by a thin mist. On the ground lies the weirdo's body. They still do not know if he is really dead. But the boy does not think that was enough for that outcome and told them not to worry about it. With a picture of him, he said he certainly would not seek revenge, or he could put his entire career at risk. He is sure that this should be enough for now. Picking up the baton from the ground, he asked if she had already forgotten. He saved her life. Therefore, she owes him one. It has already been twice. Once at the beginning and the second when she decided to follow him. But since he is a generous person, he will consider it only once. Upset, the girl wants to know if it hurts to apologize. In the parking lot of the building, the destruction is complete. From a hole in the ground, a golden light emanates. They look at it and at the light as well. It must certainly be something interesting. Descending the stairs, they get closer to the source of the glow. As they approach, they can smell a sweet scent in the air. Now near the end of the stairs, they can see better. There is a body on the ground and, in its lap, a briefcase. Apparently, it is from her that the golden glow they saw from outside is emanating. He approaches the body cautiously. Before the body, he closed his eyes as if paying condolences. Looking at the girl, he said he had already warned her about the things she would see, but she came after him anyway. Since they were already there, they decided to take a look inside the briefcase. Putting his hands on it, he began to open it. The smell they felt is beyond their ability to describe. Sweet and captivating, it even invites those who feel it to forget what they were thinking. Displayed that way, it must certainly be attracting monsters to the place. Looking at the object beside him, he wonders if there is royal jelly in that bag too. His intuition tells him they should leave there soon, as strange things might happen if they take too long. Upon exiting, they quickly reach the first floor. The weirdo's body is no longer there. If alive, he must have fled. A scream echoed, startling her, telling them to wait for what is to come. She says she remembers each of their faces well, and from then on, she would do everything possible to end them. She will make sure they regret what was done to him that day. The weirdo runs with hatred in his eyes, but soon realizes that life is a box of surprises. In front of him is a monster so hungry that it has already jumped towards him with its mouth open. This was not the end he expected to have. With no way to react, he ended up becoming monster food. Revenge will have to wait for another life, should he be reborn in an isekai. Not even the boys who had spared him expected his karma to be paid so quickly. Perhaps it would be better if they left through the back door. Outside, the sun begins to set on the horizon. After walking for a while, he imagines it must be safe there now. Looking at the girl, he asked about her test, but it seems she still has time. Then he stretched out his hand to say goodbye and said it was great to have met her. Although it was nice, they both have already completed their purposes together. On her face is a sincere smile about it. They both hold hands, happy with what they have achieved. As they leave, he reminded her about the confidentiality and payment, and to be careful in life in case he doesn't want to see her again. But there is something she would like to say. She wants to know if it's okay for them to see each other again. On the ground, there are discarded wrappers. Caballino looks to the side, intrigued. The boy had returned, and from his torn clothes, it seems he had quite a bit of fun. Now they want to take a look inside the briefcase as well. The characteristic shine begins to emerge. It would be insane if that were released to the public. It could buy some buildings. He congratulated the boy on his work and said he would send the payment soon. Smoking a cigarette, he looked at him once more. Jaryong seems strange, so Caballino wants to know if he is okay. He wants to know if he is like this because of the adventurer who died while fighting him, but he died later, and it's not a situation he should feel remorse for. Caballino asks if anything else happened while he was there. The boy dodges, saying it's nothing and that he should stop asking. Looking at the briefcase, he asked if he could take what was left, as it doesn't seem to be royal jelly. Of course, all items that are not part of the objective belong to the smuggler. That's the rule. He wants to know who the child is that will eat that. It serves to bring the dead back, but it has another use besides that. It can increase the limits of each individual, enhancing their talent potential. There isn't much clarity on this, but it only works on those who haven't reached adulthood, so they wouldn't give it to someone who wouldn't function. Surely it must be for someone from the warrior school. Jaryong said he was leaving, and Caballino wished him good luck. He sent a message to give to her father saying hi, and the boy said he would do so if he had the chance. Recently, he hasn't been feeling very well. Already outside, he looks at the color of the twilight sky and thinks about the warrior school. He remembered what the girl had said to him. Being direct, he wanted to know if she is interested in him, but she said she is not joking. There is an admission exam in the winter. They accept few people, but he should have a good chance of getting in. Looking at him, she reinforced that he should try. No adventurer can explore a dungeon alone, no matter how skilled he is. Fighting the unreal situations of dungeons alone is practically impossible. That's why a team is necessary. Different people with different talents combine their skills to overcome weaknesses and become stronger. That's how dungeons are explored. This school has political factions, and he wants to know if they fight among themselves. If it were that simple, they wouldn't need to worry about them. In their series, there are 2 factions. The 2 in the top 3 lead the factions. Hearing this, he wants to know if she belongs to any, and learned that she hasn't joined them. And regarding the situation, the teachers do not interfere, because it is the students' responsibility to find their team. She knows he means that this happens because she isn't that skilled, and she also knows she won't be an outstanding student. Even so, she should be able to get a team, even those who aren't in factions manage to, and one of the faction leaders doesn't like her. It's not explicit, but it's noticeable. Behind her back, she intentionally isolates her from the others. Jaryong wants to know if she stole that girl's boyfriend, and of course, that wasn't the reason. In any case, she has been surviving alone for now, but she won't be able to do that in the upcoming grades. That's why she wants to employ Jaryong. With his skill, in fact, just with him, she might have a chance to survive. Thinking about this, she looked at the medicines on the counter. Indeed, this is a pretty funny girl. The girl sighs tiredly. She had a tumultuous day. She finally arrived where she wanted and announced her arrival. She is at the dungeon barrier in Gangnam at the 12th location. Meanwhile, she thinks about the guy she met. As he was leaving, he said he had heard her well and wished her good luck. In her mind, she imagines he won't talk to her about it. While she was thinking, someone said she wasn't late. That's Kang, one of her teachers, in charge of hand-to-hand combat instruction. She wants to know if something happened, as she still had time, and he said there was a problem. Monsters that aren't common in certain areas had been sighted. There were no casualties, but some students said completing the test was impossible and asked for help. Those students were in the same area where she picked up the coin. Looking at her, he wants to know if she had problems with the task. Anxious, she said she didn't have any. He listened to that without reaction and didn't question her. But he told her to stay behind him, and the girl felt there was a monster there. She turned to him and became even more scared. Another one like the one that ate the weirdo, but even bigger. A titan monkey in that area is quite unusual, because they don't live anywhere nearby. Maybe it was attracted by something, and the girl starts to imagine what it could have been. It was definitely the smell she had sensed earlier. The teacher told Saram once again to stay behind him, and she apologized. That monster is completely focused on eating them. All the teachers at this school were once adventurers. Some left the profession due to the after effects of injuries sustained throughout their lives. That's what people outside think about them. A single punch from that teacher was devastating. The force is so great that the titan is being subdued. The fire quickly begins to rise up its arm. As soon as it reaches the head, it is obliterated. The lifeless body of the monster falls to the ground. These teachers, when they were younger, received the title of rankers. Even in death, the monster's head continues to explode. His prosthetic had been destroyed, and he said the girl was lucky he was there, because this could have ended in a very dangerous way. Even so, he rested his hand on her shoulder. It's very nice to know she is safe. Now, it's time to return to a safe place. People sometimes ignore the fact that the teachers there are also warriors. Back at school, they ask about the students who requested rescue. Those students will have to retake the test, which is quite fortunate. He says the people who went there are just weaklings. As they talk, he said one of the weaklings is arriving. Looking at her, the one-handed man told her to go in and wait. He will confirm that everyone is there, and she was to confirm the numbers and put on the uniform. Indeed, she feels very relieved now. A girl said she had mentioned that she would be fine. At least her tactic is quick. That fake is Anisha, and she said she was very worried about her classmate. In response, she said she didn't imagine she would be worried. Continuing with the cynicism, she said it wasn't for her, that it's her sister to say such things. It all started 6 years ago. Zeke, Saram's uncle, says she needs to increase her output. She should pay attention and stay focused, but that required too much effort from her. He finished the exercise, said it was enough, and that at least she had improved since the last time. But it was only a little. On the other side, she hears someone cheering. Tired, she looks to see what's happening. It's her sister, who shows to have much more talent. Anisha masters that technique with ease. It's not just her appearance that doesn't resemble that of a hybrid, but she can use magic more skillfully than many purebloods. He says that the cousin is a genius, and if she wants to stay on this path, she will always be in her shadow, and being constantly compared should be the least of her worries. He also suggested that she be cautious. The girl seems sadistic. Cynical still, she says she doesn't understand. Why does no one want to be on the same team as her? With the skills she has, she interrupted him and said that if she's curious, she should form a team with her. She says she can't, because they both have the same role, dealing magical damage from a distance. It doesn't make sense for two people to have the same task. This is a situation for others to handle, not her. But still, she shouldn't worry, because she's sure there will be another test. Then, she said she doesn't care about the test, because she had passed. Anisha says she's impressed and that her sister must have done her best, but she advised her not to overexert herself, because she is the one who has to inherit the company anyway. This brief interaction left her deeply irritated. What Anisha truly wants is for her to stop trying. It's already night, and the lights are visible in the building. The door suddenly opens. Jae-rong is very agitated now. The patient's guardian has arrived, and Jae-rong wants to know if something went wrong. Unfortunately, his father had a relapse. The doctors don't know how to say more about it. This patient has a very rare condition. He may be the only one in the world with it, and there is no other case in the literature of someone who was poisoned with dragon blood and survived. Jae-rong knows that the best they can do is palliative care to reduce the patient's pain and nothing more. But that's not the only problem. The ingredients for the painkillers are also an issue. The milk from a very dangerous monster is the only thing that can relieve the pain at this stage. From the flying tiger, a monster with a 5-star danger level. He says he has money, but the doctor was categorical in stating that the problem is not money. There is a new potion popular among adventurers that increases strength and endurance for a long time, even in small doses. One of its ingredients is the milk from this beast. This is an ingredient that could be obtained with money, as it was considered useless, albeit precious. But things have changed, and now companies and adventurers buy a lot of this ingredient. Jae-rong is outraged that they don't have at least a little to save a person who is dying. But he said that's not the issue. The amount he needs is the same as what is used to make 10 of those potions. If there were enough patients who needed it, the government could intervene. But since there is only one in the whole world, that won't happen, because there is no public health system in Korea. They will do what they can, but without the ingredient, there isn't much that can be done. After this devastating news, he sits on a bench in the square, deep in thought. Life seems to be getting more and more complicated. He picked up his phone to call someone. It's the girl he met earlier that he is calling. He asked if it was too late to call, but she said it's fine. Being direct, he said he doesn't have many options other than to accept her offer. In light of this, she wants to know if there are any conditions on his part. After listening, she said she could take a look, but that things might work this way. He is still incredulous that she can manage this, but she said yes. It's her company that makes this potion, and since he doesn't need much, it's an achievable request. He didn't expect to hear that, but he is happy. If that's the case, it seems they have a verbal agreement. She reminded him that he needs to prepare for the admission exam. There's nothing to lose by preparing ahead of time. The next day, he goes to the headquarters of the company. Then, she says he arrived early. Approaching, she asked how he is feeling, and he said he is fine. Jae-rong wants to know what they will do there, and she said they will measure his potential. The world has changed a lot, and before this, an ordinary human could only reach level D. Those who reached level C were basically geniuses. Anything above B is beyond human. Excluding magic, one must be at least C in 5 categories to become an explorer. To go to the warrior school, one needs to be B in at least 3 of them. Jae-rong wants to know if they are just going to do a physical exam on him. They do this with children, but after puberty it's a bit more complex. He wants to know what makes it complex. Dressed in an exotic outfit, he discovered why it became complex. The card should have dropped when she asked him how he felt. In front of him, there is a battle robot. Since they were there, he is interested in giving his best, as he was already curious to know what his potential is. Jae-rong prepares to fight the robot. A blue light begins to emerge from the figure. Just as smoke started to be exhaled from it, the girl watches, impressed by this beginning. With her, there is another woman who said he is brave. Most people are scared of the golem. This is Jung, a golem specialist, and she is curious about the determination of the boy who wants to transfer. She smiles discreetly, as she knows that's not quite what's happening. Putting her cup on the table after having drunk her coffee, it was time to start the aptitude test. The golem's parts begin to move. It prepares to attack the person in front of it. Jae-rong is not intimidated by it at all. This test happens between the 6th and 7th year. The suit is to ensure data is collected accurately. This way, the body can be pushed to the limit in various areas, but it's hard to measure if they are truly talented, or if they simply trained for a long time. She knows that Jae-rong is physically privileged. It won't be easy to push him to his limit. Even so, he should already be tired by now. The other girl calls for Seram. She wants to confirm if this boy really failed to get into a specialized school, because she is very curious now. Talented in this way, he must have failed at something really difficult. Even with reduced difficulty, that model is used to train professionals. With few dodges, he identified a pattern and found an opening to attack. He is simply insane with his skills. Just with his senses, he is already better than the average professional. Seram wants to know the result of the measurement. This is a bit more complicated, because he clearly hasn't reached his limit yet. It's necessary to increase the difficulty of the test, but it doesn't make sense to raise the difficulty by 1 or 2 levels. It needs to be set to full strength, and she wants to know if Seram is aware of the risks. It's a crime to do this with people who are not registered professionals, but if they don't do this, there's no way to know his limits. She tries to think of some possibility. Entering the room, a person says that she is not paid to do this kind of thing. She turns around, startled by the one who just arrived. It's the director, Zeke, who said that the lab cannot be used without reporting the reason. Seram sees her uncle. They didn't expect him to come there on a Sunday. He said he hopes it's a reason for which she is willing to be arrested. Seram says she is the only one at fault, as it was her who asked for this. Zeke wants to know if it was really her, or if it's an excuse to cover for her employee. Seram shouldn't get confused. That place belongs to her father, not her. There's nothing she can do to take responsibility for herself. The rumors about the director are indeed true. He is her uncle on her mother's side and has always been cold to her, even though she hasn't done anything wrong. It's the weekend and other adventurers connected to the company also use that place. He was going to continue the sermon, but Jae-rong spoke up. He wanted to know if there was a problem up there. Zeke wants to know who this is and if he is on her level. The employee says he is a friend of Seram. She said he had failed admission exams and lost his potential registration. That's why he was there. Since it's something costly, she just wanted to help a friend who couldn't pay. Zeke looked at the golem, which seems to have taken a beating, thinking about what he just saw. He said he would do this. The employee wants to know what he means by that. He heard that the golem is not enough and cannot be taken out of safe mode. So, he will go down and face this colleague himself. Jae-rong still doesn't know if everything is okay. Not infrequently, adventurers tend to get into conflict with each other when it's hard to find someone's limits. And in this particular case, the opponent. He is several levels above the one who is testing. Zeke says he will skip the introduction. Because he doesn't have much time left, Jae-rong soon realized. That guy is definitely not normal. He has no idea who he is going to face, but his senses went on alert immediately. Zeke told him to try his best. The weirdo from before had been the first he fought. No matter how he looked at him, he felt he was not a beatable opponent. Listening to the order to attack, he felt apprehensive. There was no need to worry about Zeke's safety. Then, Jae-rong began to plan his attack. He started to channel his aura. Finally, he had initiated his charge. Zeke stands still, waiting for contact. Despite appearances, Zeke is the 7th strongest ranker in all of Korea, a white-class adventurer. Jae-rong cannot identify a single opening, but he won't give up. He will create the opportunity. His strategy for combat is simple. As soon as his opponent dodged, he would execute a single attack from behind. For that, he will use the opening created by the dodge. His staff was blocked by a single hand. That was not the result he aimed for. Zeke is truly very strong. He said that kid is even more frivolous than he imagined he would be. With him in front of him, he struck him with a single kick. Jae-rong felt the force of the impact, which was brutal. His body was thrown towards the wall. However, he cannot understand one thing: if he attacked that way because he knows it's a simulation, or if he really thought it would work. The answer doesn't matter. The choice is foolish in both cases. With his foot, he lifted the staff to his hands. Even though he is conscious, he had lost the only weapon he had. With that, Jae-rong became alert. It makes sense. Then, Zeke returned the staff to him. So far, he has been lenient with the kid's foolish choices. One more folly, and he will make sure he regrets being an adventurer. He spreads his feet, assuming an offensive stance. He doesn't know exactly why, but he senses that Zeke must have some kind of grudge against him, but he won't take it personally. Then, he moved again to attack him. Zeke imagines that the approach, being similar to the previous one, will follow the same pattern. However, Jae-rong planted one of his feet on the ground. That made Zeke extremely alert. Before him, there are 2 attacks coming in his direction. A ranged attack to then be caught off guard is not enough. Jae-rong says that this guy must not be satisfied yet, which is good, as he has only just begun. His staff is now glowing with an incandescent blue color. He prepares to execute a powerful attack. Zeke still doesn't know what to expect from the kid. Once again, a series of attacks heads in his direction. Exhaling a bit of his aura, he says that this isn't too bad. He clenched his fists tightly. Postured, he managed to defend against all the attacks that were approaching. From above, the staff member thinks this fight is between 2 professionals, given its technical level. It's hard to believe that the kid hasn't been accepted into any school yet. To be honest, it's not like he is perfect at everything. Seram wants to know what she means by that. He has a weakness that greatly hinders him. In that same aspect, she says she is far superior to him, and Seram wonders what that aspect could be, because apparently, he fights on equal footing with Zeke. Now she is curious to know what is wrong with him. Jae-rong narrowly avoids a blow. That punch almost hit his unprotected face. The staff member begins to watch the fight, sorrowful. Jae-rong had lost any advantage and is being struck multiple times. He agonizes, with no time to react to block the attack. But he gathers the determination he has to respond. He swung his staff to push his opponent away. Zeke said he maintained control over the staff at the last moment. That is certainly true. His fist sank into the kid's abdomen. Once again, he was thrown towards the wall. The director is truly remarkable, and she knows he is still holding back. Saram watches that fight attentively. Zeke says he shouldn't think about defeat, as it would happen anyway. But his journey to accept defeat is lamentable. Jae-rong lacks basic training. That is the same opinion the staff member has about him. The talent and reflexes are truly exceptional, but the fundamentals are absent. It's as if he has never trained in his life. She is even disappointed. If he had been taught the basics, he would have enormous potential. Saram remembered that he had told her he had never been taught by anyone. Zeke says he has seen many people like him. Even being talented, he does not dedicate himself to refining what he already has, but Saram knows that is not the case. He said he would give him credit for that. However, he strongly suggests that he give up. Someone weak like him could end up dying if he relies only on talent. Getting up, he says he has no idea about something. He has been talking so much nonsense. It's as if he hates him for thinking he is lazy. Zeke is surprised as he delivered the final blow, intending to end it. Jae-rong says he doesn't care about the results, but wants to go another round. For now, he will show him the result of his effort. The staff member asks what is happening with them. She thinks it's cute that they want to fight, but she already has enough data to calculate his potential. Even Saram tries to intervene, saying it's not necessary to continue. He could already stop and see his results. Zeke says he doesn't know what he intends to do, but no matter what he does, the result will always be the same. He even thinks the kid wants words of affirmation from him. To be frank, that's not quite what he desires. Jae-rong is quite irritated, and all he wants now is to beat up this arrogant-eared brat. Without anyone to teach him, he had to learn everything from scratch in his own way. Even so, things weren't that bad. He really has a natural talent. Thus, he managed to fill in the gaps that basic training would have taught him. Moreover, he has vast field experience. This made him capable of doing whatever he wanted. Exceptional progress, but it never crossed his mind that he would be better than others. In fact, he was even disappointed with the fakes who, in the end, were weaker than him. But that eared brat over there is different from all the rest. Zeke now wants to hit him so hard that the kid won't even feel anger. He is a monster beyond Jae-rong's reach. Seeing the aura being exuded, he notices something. Now he is indeed being taken seriously by the eared one, faced with someone he considers a real challenge. His blood began to boil without him noticing. Watching the scene, the staff member says, "This is madness," and doesn't know why the director is like this too. Saram noticed that his stance is different from before. The posture and weight distribution are a bit more aggressive. Now there are two completely different people from before. Jae-rong calmly sighs after preparing himself. He initiated his charge. This time, things would be different. He executes his first attack, which is intense. Even though Zeke dodged, his cheek was superficially cut. Not even the staff member can believe what she sees. Jae-rong is really attacking in a different way. However, even so, Zeke continues to dodge everything. Compared to before, they are still simple and crude movements, but there are no more openings. She doesn't know who taught him, but that is simply phenomenal. All Jae-rong wants now is to beat up this eared brat. He remembers who he watched when he was a child. Everything that man did, he imitated as best he could. Tired of dodging, Zeke blocks the baton with one of his hands and starts his counterattack, which is defended by the kid. When he was just a little Jae-rong, he happily imitated. Now he is facing the strongest opponent he has ever encountered. Zeke definitely wants to beat him up too. That man found the child's dedication interesting. This time Zeke hit something. He looked a bit intrigued at that tiny being. Zeke missed. Jae-rong had dodged the attack by a hair. The little boy seemed quite interested in that. Now he wields his baton to return the attack. He looks anxiously to see what will happen. Jae-rong is fully confident in his abilities. The man just patted his little head and looked at him with admiration. That attack would have been devastating if it had hit. Zeke had to jump. As soon as he lands, there will be an opening. He knows that if Jae-rong attacks, he won't be able to dodge, but he is determined to give him what he has been seeking with this fight. Since he can't dodge, he goes straight for the kid. They watch, impressed by what is happening. The smoke rises in the arena. That had been the last blow. If he hadn't used that bizarre technique with the baton, he would certainly have won if he had continued. Zeke wants to know if this is a display of pride on his part. Smiling, he says that's not it. He simply only knew up to that point. That's all he had memorized. In the end, he just ended up getting beaten even more. Even so, that wasn't too bad. Zeke is not very well liked among his peers because he is annoying, but no one can complain about his actions, for his skills are truly powerful. Extending his hand over Jae-rong's face, he prepares to do something. The aura begins to rise gently. In light of his niece's concern, he told her not to worry. The kid will be fine, he just healed his wounds. He just wanted to confirm with her if his name is Yu Jae-rong. Zeke is one of the only 10 rankers in the entire country and did not expect something like this that day. Who would have thought he would find the son of that guy over there? Zeke is the greatest healer in Korea. The sun is finally starting to set. Someone tells Zeke that if he was going to be late, he could at least have sent a message. He could have at least had a coffee and relaxed. Now they are going to be late for the instruction again. And every time they arrive late, people always think it's his fault. But Zeke says something happened and it took longer than expected. The young man says he heard Zeke was dueling with a boy, but given the delay, he thinks it was several. As soon as he looks at him closely, he is surprised. There's a small mark on his cheek. Looking closer, his surprise grows. To Zeke's curiosity, he wants to confirm if the thing on his cheek is indeed a cut. Impatient, Zeke asks what it could be then if that isn't a cut. But he can't believe it. This boy must be ready to go to school and must be 16 years old, but Zeke says he's 17. It seems he will try to enter the warrior school in the winter admission. Indeed, it exists, but he doesn't remember anyone passing in the last 3 years. Surely he has a chance. Cutting Zeke's cheek is not an easy feat. This new generation is really coming in more and more astonishing. Zeke says comparing people to elves is disproportionate and is sure the boy is no different from the young man. Kang says there must be. He is the 19th in rank, a black class explorer, leader of the Nyx attack squad. He believes he has an advantage over the boy, both in talent and experience. He is only 21 and graduated from school a year and a half ago. Zeke just sighs after hearing this. He said he hadn't seen that car yet, and the young man said he hardly spends his money, so he gives himself certain privileges. Jae-rong continues lying on a stretcher. After a while, he finally gets up. Looking at his hands, he realizes that all his wounds have healed. Besides that, he feels no pain. The girl says he finally woke up. She wants to know what he was thinking and if he really thought he would win. But he says it wasn't quite that. He just got really angry, and it was the other guy who started it. But she doesn't understand why his uncle would want to fight the boy, and Jae-rong wants to know if they are really related. And indeed he is. He is his uncle on his mother's side. In the face of his silence, she becomes curious, but he just says he's fine. He said they seem to have a good relationship, which can be perceived by the way he treats her. But she didn't understand where he got that conclusion. Jae-rong said it's as he said. He could feel his concern that a stranger might be taking advantage of his niece. He can't fault him for that. Only she says her uncle isn't really that person and that in fact he is very strict. The staff member arrives in the room too, noticing that he is already awake. She asked if he feels any kind of pain, but he replies that his body is fine. In fact, she is sure that it would have healed even old injuries. It may not seem like it, but the director is the greatest healer in the country. That left him perplexed. Even being that strong, combat is not his primary function. Jae-rong smiles as he realizes this. In any case, it's a relief that he is well, and she already has the results of the evaluation. Handing him the tablet, she showed the information. It's really very good, says Saerom. He is A in stamina and agility, B in strength and patience, and C in intelligence. Looking at the data, he wants to know if this is really good. She shouts, annoyed, for him to shut up. The staff member wonders if he is really prepared to join the school. To be a high-level explorer, you need to have at least some B rating in skills. However, it is necessary to have balanced stats. It's no use being too agile if you don't have stamina. Even being very strong, all that strength is useless without agility. She says even normal people have C-rank skills, but things get different when you have more than one. Having C or above in strength, stamina, and agility is something 1 in 10,000 possesses. If they are B, it's 1 in a million. That alone places him among the best explorers. He not only has B in strength, but A in the other two. Besides being balanced, his stats are well above average. Even though it's his first year, he will be at the same level as that monster. Looking at him, she asked if he wanted to hear something interesting. The person he had just fought has not a single status that is higher than A. Status are just the total potential. They do not translate what the person has in practical skill. Even with good status, the real difference lies in training, and that is not the only variable. There are things that cannot be measured as well, like fighting spirit and field experience. It may seem a bit cruel at first, but she has seen several explorers who filled those gaps through sheer determination. Saerom blushed as she knew the girl was talking about her. After hearing all that, she thanked her for the story she had listened to. Indeed, he is not disappointed or anything of the sort. He just doesn't quite understand it yet. But there is someone he knows, and compared to that person, he is very far away. The employee was surprised that he knows someone like that. That is not common at all. It must certainly be a famous person, and he kind of is, more or less. Seram says they are done for today and that they could see each other next week. But, since they were there, the employee suggested they visit the medication production section. But the girl is hesitant. She doesn't know if her uncle would be upset with this attitude. However, the employee said that the director had already authorized it. Seram doesn't believe that and wants to know if he said that before leaving. His words were that as soon as the boy woke up, he should be taken to where the equipment is made, and to tell the others that the boy is his guest, to even make a weapon that adapts to him. Costs don't matter. Seram can hardly believe that. Quality equipment is the dream of any adventurer. Even if he is extremely talented, if the equipment is of low quality, it won't keep up with the power of its user. As skills are perfected, the explorer needs better equipment that can keep up with him. In light of that, Jaryong cannot understand the situation. He doesn't know if he needs equipment now, as he is just going to school, but Seram says it's not as he thinks. The boy thinks that at school they will receive equipment for the students. Hearing this, they don't even know what to say. Seram knows that all of this is her fault. If it were a normal institution, his assumption would be correct. Each school has its own regulations regarding the equipment that can be used. Jaryong imagined that this is the situation at the warrior school, as they are the ones with the most resources. Jung says it's not about resources, but that the school has different ideals. There is a difference between talent and skill, and obtaining good equipment is a skill in itself. That's why the school requires students to bring their own equipment. To him, this only favors those who have resources, and he asked them if being rich is a skill. He is indeed not wrong about that. However, it is possible for students to have good equipment even if they have no money at all. Entering this school implies that the student has the potential to be a great explorer with chances of becoming a star. This in itself can be used as an advantage, as there are people who want to invest in that. Students soon attract the interest of various companies that see opportunities for business in them. The offers are incredible, as they are all very large companies. She herself received a scholarship from the Jinsong Group and a job guarantee until she wanted to retire. Without showing surprise upon hearing this, she concludes by saying that these are the doors that open when one enters this school. What will not be lacking are opportunities for him to prove himself in front of his peers. However, the first step for him is to pass the test. The transfer exam is harder than the admission one, and he needs to prepare. Obtaining equipment is one of the things that needs to be done. That's why the director wanted to help him with that. As she has already passed the details along, he just needs to go to the refinery in the basement. She wished him luck and that he could be admitted to the school. That could have ended in a bad way. Seram wants to know how. He says she didn't imagine that his uncle would help. The more he hears about the test, the more it seems that people do everything to pass. That's why she wants to help him and is using her own money to do so. Whenever she sees that expression on his face, she gets extremely irritated. Even so, it was nice to hear that. No matter how much money a person has, it is also important to know who will make that equipment. And the equipment production sector of this company is one of the best on the planet. Arriving at the forge, he says there shouldn't be much difference between one piece of equipment and another. But what he was seeing made him think differently. The forge is simply immense, and it used to be a dungeon called the Bubbling Abyss. Seram wants to know what he thinks of all this. That is not a place where one can simply ask for something to be done. Being there, a shiver runs through him. A huge figure stands behind both of them. On its face, a massive eye shines. The boy has already turned around, ready to react to the situation. The figure says that Zeke woke him from his weekend nap. And even so, he won't go personally to the forge. Jaryong wants to know if this is a monster, but Seram says it isn't. In fact, he is the head of the equipment production division. Actually, the boy isn't wrong either. He is an ancient titan named Argeus, and from a human perspective, he is a monster, but he managed to gain naturalization in Korea through a special rite. Lighting his cigar, he wants to know who the human Zeke had mentioned is. He wants to know if it's the little boy in front of him, or if it's the niece of the big-eared one, but she said that the information had already been passed to him. But he says that this digital information is human stuff, and he doesn't care about it at all. The ones in charge of that are his employees, but today is a day off, and none of them are there now. Even so, that is not important at all. Since he was asked to take care of this personally, it's time to start working. Then, he wants to know if what the boy carries is his main weapon, and he says yes. If that's the case, he told him to try to hunt him. Seram became anxious and wants to know what he intends with that. For his kind, this is necessary. Unless he is worthy, he won't put any of his effort into this task. Even so, he seems to be different from the others he had seen. He has eyes prepared and accustomed to hunting, and a sense of hostility that can still be refined, and he said once again that the boy should try to beat him up. Seram remains anxious about the situation, seeing Jaryong getting ready, and he told Argeus that he doesn't usually refuse proposals like that. Immediately, his eye widened. The boy was already engaged in attacking him. The staff is handled with mastery, striking him with force. Seiram watches the beginning of the fight, apprehensive. The cigar falls to the ground after the impact. That is simply impossible for him. Without having suffered any damage, he wants to know where he got that weapon. That reaction left the boy quite confused. He is sure that the hit had been clean. Indeed, there are several monsters he couldn't finish off with just one blow. But the feeling he had when hitting that one was like hitting a huge wall. It's not just about strength, it was like hitting an inanimate object. Intrigued, he wants to know what monster he had hit. And there was one more reason for Seiram to be so worried and anxious. Monsters have their danger classification designated with stars. 1 star only means they are capable of killing humans, and monsters in that range can be defeated by a normal person, as long as they are armed. With 2 stars, the difficulty increases significantly. They can be defeated by trained individuals equipped with firearms. Things get much tougher with 3 stars. They can only be defeated by troops armed with heavy equipment. With 4 stars, the situation is catastrophic. Ground troops focus on evacuating civilians and reducing casualties. After the evacuation, they are destroyed with artillery and bombs. That is the limit that the armed forces can combat. Anything above 5 stars is beyond modern military capability. Even if they defeat such a monster, it will come at the cost of a lot of firepower and with destruction close to irreparable. To minimize the damage, those capable of killing these monsters are sent, an elite squad with the best explorers. Argeus is a 7-star monster and he asks his question again. He wants to know where the boy got that weapon. The boy wants to know if it hurt him more than it should and doesn't understand why so many questions. He says it's good for the boy to think very carefully about the answer he will give him, because he was the one who made that staff. Hearing that, Jaryong was surprised. Now irritated, he said he would only ask one more time. He wants to know why this weapon is in his hands and not in the hands of the person it was made for. If it was made by Argeus, that weapon alone has a rank superior to A, and it must be cataloged in the association, as well as data about the owner and its exact location. It is not an item that a smuggler could easily obtain. Seiram does not want to believe that he could have stolen that item. Jaryong says he won't say. In fact, he has no reason to respond. Seiram says he is very stupid, and Argeus said he understands that, and now he will take this into consideration. Immediately, there was only one thought running through his mind. It was death. There is no way to evade it, and he has no idea how to block this attack. There is no apparent weakness in that monster's hand. If he tried to absorb the attack, he would just end up dead anyway. His only option is the third choice, the last technique he learned by observing his father. The Titan realized that something is happening. Even so, he completed his attack, striking the ground. When 2 forces collide, the larger and stronger one always ends up winning, but the result is different if they are not facing each other. Calculating precisely the angle and the place, even if winning is not a possibility, it is possible to redirect the resulting force. Seiram cannot believe he managed to evade an attack coming from a 7-star monster. The Titan waits for the next move. His only chance now is to use the needle to strike the monster's only eye. However, even before getting close, he is caught by the giant's prosthetic, which now brings him closer to its face. He is firmly trapped and cannot move. Seiram asks him to stop and says that the boy may seem suspicious, and says that, even so, he has no right to attack a human and should be aware of the consequences. Except in dangerous situations, naturalized species cannot attack people. If this occurs, the aggressor will lose their rights and be treated as a hostile monster. Releasing the boy, he said he should not worry. He understands this clearly, despite everything. He finally realized why the boy has the weapon he made. That's why Zeke woke him from his weekend slumber. In light of this, he apologized and said that he has every right to carry that weapon, and that he will make sure to pay him for his mistake. Then, he noticed something with his only eye. It has been 30 years since the last time he was hurt by an attack. Seiram does not know what he is talking about, as he did not understand what happened. He asks if he knows why he works for humans now. She thinks it was because he was hunted by the squad 30 years ago, but he says that is not it. He is surprised that this is the story humans tell, as they couldn't even touch him. The one who hunted him was a man who did it alone. He was the one who cut off his hand and had the chance to reap his life, but chose not to. As he says this, he is watched by the boy. In the same way, he looks back at him. Argeus has always been a very powerful monster. He was ready to fight that hunter. In his hands there was a battle axe. It was his father who forged it. The ancient titans are the strongest among giants. They have an unknown lifespan, and there are fewer than 10 of them known. Their physical abilities are beyond human comprehension, but they are widely known for their ability to forge equipment that have special powers or even artifacts. This is a skill that is born with them. Those who come closest to it are the dwarves. Unlike the titans, the dwarves chose to coexist with humans. The Titans, besides not opting for that, saw humans as unworthy. Something happened 30 years ago during Argus's subjugation. At the door of his forge, there was a 4-star automaton colossus. They want to know if the communication channel with the base is still cut off. All magical communication is interrupted. There must be something blocking the signal. Terrified, someone says he is coming and that they should prepare for impact. The Colossus attacks the invaders without mercy. The one using the shield tries to hold the blow with all his strength. Behind the automaton, the girl prepares to strike. She needs to take advantage of this opening before it's too late. Her strike is accurate, but it is blocked by the helm. That was not the result she was seeking. Her sword was completely ineffective in penetrating the armor's defense. In light of this, the automaton prepares to counterattack. Then it strikes her with its shield. She flies several meters until crashing into the wall of the place. All of this was completely beyond what they imagined. Gaebyuk's attack squad was among the best in terms of dungeon subjugation. However, in the bubbling abyss, they were completely obliterated. They had already faced 7 colossi in total. Even if they defeat one, another appears right after. If the other team performs the same way they do, it will be the end. The guy with the shield ordered his companions to flee, for he knows it will be difficult for all of them to leave this place alive. While he spoke, the automaton executed another attack with its sword, but the young man reacted quickly with his shield and managed to defend himself. His ability allows him to consume energy to enhance all his physical attributes. After activation, the user becomes incapacitated for a time. With the sword parried on the shield, he used another ability to push. Thus, the automaton lost its balance. The young man knows that if his leader uses that ability now, he will be in trouble. But he had already said they wouldn't all make it out alive, and they don't have the strength to defeat that monster. However, it is enough to buy time for them. Being optimistic, he might just get lucky and still have a chance. However, they soon feel a presence that is too challenging. Argeus asks what is happening in his forge. In that moment, they realized they were dead. Argeus wants to know if there are still cockroaches that the automatons couldn't kill. Just being in his presence terrifies them intensely. The leader was categorical and shouted for them to flee quickly. With the little strength he had left, he advanced towards Argeus. All he wants is to buy a little more time, but he was swept away with a single blow from the Titan, which incinerated him completely. There is nothing he can do. Argeus was sure they were inferior to him. Both the body and the equipment they carry are trash. Filled with inferior beings, this world is doomed to perdition. Intrigued, he looks at the one standing before him. The mage wields his staff, frightened. It is slightly thrilling to observe that. Even in fear, he is still loyal, even though, in the end, it means nothing at all. Only the boy knows he won't be able to deal with a monster that even the leader couldn't face. Then, a man appears, saying he had already told them that the place is not safe. If they gathered information gradually, they would prepare better. There is no advantage in completing the dungeon just to complete it. The boy doesn't even know who this person is. The association received the distress call, and he is one of the volunteers from the rescue team. He even had armor, but it was heavier than he imagined. The boy thinks he went there alone. Indeed, he was the only one who managed to get there. The automaton prepares to attack the intruder. A loud sound echoes through the corridors of the forge. The boy is completely terrified, and the man says they are quite strong. At that time, Seong was not known by many. He was basically a stranger. He managed to cut off an arm of the monster without difficulty, and the first-generation explorers knew him. His focus was not fame, but rather rescuing those who were in trouble. However, that day would mark the beginning of everything. Seong prepares to finish off the automaton. With a single blow, he split it from top to bottom, effortlessly. That display of strength captured Argeus's attention. Looking at him, Seong imagines this one must be a bit more difficult, and that day the world learned who that man was. The aura of the blow even changed the lighting of the dungeon. The mage cannot believe that was done. The entire team was struggling to deal with the Colossus, and that person finished it off in a single movement. Seong asked the mage if he still had mana left. He said he didn't have much, but it was enough to give him some blessing. Seong says he doesn't need that, but asked if he knows any levitation spell. If he knew he should use it to take the other two out of there. Even though they are very injured, they are breathing. Argeus found it presumptuous that he thought about going back. It almost seems like he really believes he can get out of there alive. Xiong says he won't let him touch the others while he is there. This deeply irritated the Titan. Without wasting any more time, he attacked that man with all his strength. However, he reacted skillfully. His emanated aura is devastating. The shock of the impact between their blades echoes through the dungeon. On his way out, the mage looks back in terror, 10 years after the joining. The adventurers had reached a limit. They have superhuman strength. The technology of the equipment had also progressed, better adapting to each one's needs. But, Unlike the progress of status and equipment, there was still much lacking in execution and experience. The solution was human development, a martial art that defies common logic. At that time, few saw that as a solution and began to develop and research techniques. Argius had been hit, but his armor protected him from the first impact. Seong continued and delivered another blow. He is one of those people who has perfected this martial art. The wizard looks happy, thinking that the monster has been defeated, but soon his expression changes again. Argius says that guy is different because he knows how to use what he has in hand. If the weapon he wields could withstand half the force he possesses, the result would have been different. The edge of the blade had melted with the strike. He couldn't afford the best equipment yet, and this isn't the first time this has happened with an axe. Thus, he looked back to see those he had gone to rescue. He was happy to realize they were almost out of the dungeon. Now he needed to defend himself from the hostile monster. His flaming sword is blocked by the handle of the axe. Argius says that his defensive skill and ability to dodge attacks are among the best he has seen in humans. However, the axe he carries is worse than any he has seen before. Even though he is capable of defending, the axe can no longer take it. Preparing to attack once more, he said that now it would be the end. But that is not what Seong desires. The blades collide once again, devastatingly. Instead of having his attack deflected, he blocked it with everything he had. That had been the origin of the technique that Jaryong eventually learned. A skill that uses the opponent's strength against themselves. But when it comes to the user's strength, experience, and execution skill, his father executed it at a completely different level. That had been strong enough to make the Titan step back. This is the martial art of a hero. He is sure that this must be a well-known story among humans. The hero finally defeats the monster. On that day, after receiving the attack from the boy's father, the monster within him died. When he lost, the life he had was no longer his, but Seong's, who chose not to kill him. What the attack squad couldn't accomplish was completed by a single man from the rescue team. A ridiculous ending to an epic story, and the most important part begins after that. Ancient Titans, even when they die, never bow before those they consider inferior. Still, Argius accepted being exiled by humans. Saeram remembers this, as it was a significant event. The whole world was shocked. Eventually he gained citizenship, and the fact that he hadn't killed anyone helped a lot. But it doesn't change the fact that he committed crimes, and to pay for them, he was given the task of forging equipment. However, this story is completely different from what she had learned. Argius said that the staff the young man carries was made as a gift for his father. Even though he never asked for it, Argus thought he deserved to carry something like that. He always knew it was very solid, but he didn't think it had anything special. That's why it hadn't been pawned, as they thought it was useless. In fact, he is not wrong. It is only good for hitting people with brute force. That wasn't quite what they expected to hear, and Sarum is stuck on the part where the boy mentioned pawning. Argus said it was quite simple and that the boy should already know this. He asked if his father used it as a weapon. He would make an axe for him as soon as he brought the rest of the material to make the blade, but he ended up losing contact with him one day. And since he couldn't leave the dungeon, he decided to send what he had already made to his father. Even if he can't say it, he imagines not being able to finish that weapon. But that's not entirely bad. So he asked for the incomplete weapon to be delivered to him, because now he will finish what he had started, a masterpiece not for the father, but for the son. While the Titan works, they return to the upper floors. Sairam looks at him a bit curious about what she heard. She wants to know how he is feeling now. Despite everything, he is fine, and felt that the Titan wanted to make sure he was okay. He doesn't know how long it will take, but he will strive to be as quick as possible. He advised her to wait, as masterpieces take time to complete. Since Wednesday would be a holiday, she wants to know if he will have available time. She thought about helping him study for the written test, and he thought that would be productive too. While they were still walking, there is something more she would like to say. His father must have been an incredible person. She would never imagine he would be the one to complete that dungeon. She wants to know if he is in the hospital to get some rest after retiring. He said he would go ahead to rest. If anything, just talk to him later, but she was left without receiving a response to the comment she made. Already in the car, she continues her way back home. Consulting the internet, she finds that the narrative of the story is not true. That was what she had learned, but she is thinking about Argeus's words. The team that completed the dungeon is considered heroic today, all at the expense of another adventurer's deeds. There is no reason for Argeus to have lied about this, but thinking about Jaryong's abilities, it is completely acceptable for his father to be someone exceptional. Not to mention that you can't know what happens inside a dungeon, and this happens frequently, the story told being different from the fact. Seong is known as the false dragon slayer. He was once regarded as one of the greatest in Korea. It was discovered that it was all just blackmail and false statistics, which he revealed after being hurt. There is even an article about the fact on the internet debunking his deeds. That made her doubt what she had heard and what she was reading. The result of her practical test was already available. Inside the school, in the department responsible for dungeons, an employee is grateful. Professor Cho apologizes to Kang, who couldn't rest over the weekend because of her. But it is only her first year, and it is important for him to look at the first-year students. She says that things there are quite intense, not just as a teacher, but the freshmen are very talented, more than she was at the same time. Now, she wants to know if she expected the first place to be from this student. Indeed, unusual. Kang says that this is not an easy result to predict. Seiram is the one who can't believe the exam result, as there are many geniuses alongside her. Coincidentally, they are all hybrids. The first is Diav Choi. He inherited his father's sword talent, who is a white class explorer, combined with the magical talent of his elf mother. He is the perfect magic swordsman. In second place, there is Anisha. She has more mana and magical control than many pure elves, with the potential to be a great mage. Lastly, a boy, the son of a human and a dwarf. The strength and resilience of dwarves, with the flexibility and reflexes of a human, the best of both. This is Tyr Velkason, considered to have the best physique on the planet. He is a student at the school. Even so, he must be as capable as the other two. The first place should go to one of those two, even though it was hard to believe she achieved all this on her own. Doing just must have given her more points. Physicality is not the only thing that counts. That's why she hopes he does more, as he has the potential to become a great leader. But, it seems, he has no interest in relating to the other students. In fact, the students are afraid to approach him, but there are limits to how far one can go alone, and in the second year, he will soon discover that. Kang says this is not a problem she should worry about. Sometimes things happen without us noticing their unfolding, and details go unnoticed. He knows she cares about all the students, but if she believes in him more than she worries, he will find a way to resolve himself. Since then, 4 days have passed and the holiday has arrived. A group of boys is gossiping about what a girl had done, but one of them ends up bumping into a huge person. He turns to confront this person. He just didn't expect to come across a physique chiseled from Trenbolone, ripped and dry, spitting sand from his mouth. The champion of the Arnold Classic began to open his mouth, and he apologized to them, saying he was distracted and hadn't seen them on the way. The boys are still terrified and apologized more, intimidated by the citizen's physique. After the interaction, he saw that his shirt was dirty. All he thinks about is how he can be so unlucky. The truth is that he misses his mother a lot. Seok Yubin went to Europe, but she was a successful hunter in Korea. She told many stories to her son about her times as an explorer. Thus, admiration for Korea and its culture grew in him, thanks to the opportunity and the natural talent he possessed. He entered the warrior school through a special transfer test. Unfortunately, he is an extremely introverted boy. He even wants to interact with his peers, but he thinks he will be the subject of jokes for not speaking the language well. He hates this trait of his personality. Seeing that he is uncomfortable, the classmates apologize for talking so loudly. But neither do they know that the giant is introverted, nor does he imagine that, in fact, they fear him. Without intending to, he became a lone wolf. Looking to the side, he sees two boys talking about trivialities. They are heading to a gaming cafe. He remembered that his mother said she used to go to those places to play. Inside the establishment, there aren't many people. He doesn't even know what to do, and nearby, someone is talking on the phone. At a self-service screen, he tries to log in, but just being there makes him anxious. He imagines that he is holding up the line and that he should leave since he is alone. A young man said that he probably doesn't have a registration, that terminal is for those who already have one, and he should go to another. He asked him to follow, as he would show him how to do it. He doesn't need to fill everything out, just the essential fields. Once registered, he just needs to pay at the other machine and then choose which computer to use. The giant thanked him, and Jaryung said it was nothing. He looked at that young man and wondered if he was a foreigner and that he shouldn't be familiar with this establishment. However, he just wanted Seiram to arrive soon, as she was late. Had he known, he would have arrived later or stopped by the black market first. He had received a small black piece, not knowing what it was. It was in the chest with the jelly, and he wanted to know what it could be. Its texture is quite smooth, but it shouldn't be edible. Since he still doesn't know what it is, he will keep this object stored. If he needs money, it's better to sell the other item, which has Enkel's blood, one of the 3 great disasters of the Igar forest. In recent decades, although various attack teams have tried, no one has yet been able to subdue this beast. All they have managed so far are a few scales, and an insignificant amount of the creature's blood. The government has prohibited its hunting, and items that use material related to it are worth a fortune. He was supposed to meet her for lunch and go to the black market at night, but her delay messed up his plans. The foreigner said there were no other vacant spots and sat near the one who helped him. Then, he said he could sit down, as he wasn't waiting for anyone anymore. Sitting down, he logged into the machine. There are no special games, and the computer he has at home is much better than that one too. Then, Jaryong noticed something on the screen next to him. He wanted to know if the foreigner played Heroes of Chaos, and he confirmed. They are at similar levels. Since the people he usually plays with are not online, he invited him to play together. They could team up in ranked matches. In Seoul, there are some pieces of devastated and abandoned land called scars. During the annexation, entire cities were lost. Some of them have been recovered over time, but some, too close to dungeons, were abandoned. These areas today have a purpose. They are a second line of defense until the humans' refuge. But in the last 20 years, that has never happened. There are no cases of monsters leaving the walls of their own accord. There is even a transport function for them. This guard hates having to perform that function. While his friends make money hunting, he is there driving monsters around. Joanna says that if he thinks that's bad, he should quit his job and go back to the fields. She was a gold-class explorer and retired after injuring her eye. She wants to know what he is doing there then. Sun Changwoo was a bronze-class adventurer. While talking, he said that the reason he is there is to make money, as he can hardly join any team. Hearing the facts ended up hurting his ego. While driving, something unexpected happened. It was necessary to stop the truck. It can't be that the monster escaped. Getting out, she told her colleague to inform the barracks that they stopped to inspect the vehicle. Outside, she prepared to do her job. Inside the cabin, he was already passing on the information. He gets scared at the possibility of something happening, but his colleague is very skilled, so she should be fine. Soon he heard the door opening. He was ready to tell her that she had done a good job, but a different woman was there and said that it was nothing. Even her reflexes were good for a government employee. But there must be a reason she isn't in the field, and she glances at the names of the people behind. Looking at the driver, she wants to know what he is still doing standing still. He was supposed to drive if he didn't want to die soon. The gaming session between the two is going very well. Not to mention that their food order arrived at the perfect time. He didn't expect them to be the same age. Not that he looks older, but he is very tall and strong. Then he asked which school he was going to, but there wasn't time to answer. Immediately they felt that something had happened. The ground shook. People thought it could be an earthquake. It almost seemed like something had exploded there. This sparked a debate, and soon they began to imagine what it could have been. The truck had collided. Perhaps its driver was drunk. One guy films while the other says they should notify the authorities right away. From the top of the building, the girl says it would have been better if the truck had collided more in the center. Soon the place will be infested with explorers, but she is confident she will be able to escape in time. But her superiors are asking her to come back soon. The monsters begin to flee from the truck, as she had awakened all of them. The people who gathered there, out of curiosity, all regret it now. Horror of horns. The more numerous they are, the more dangerous they become. Looking down, she kicks maybe about 50 people, but she will stay there to see the outcome. Who knows? At least 100 people might die before help arrives. A curious onlooker was grabbed by the head. He was crushed, and another was paralyzed with fear. The monsters are in a frenzy before their potential victims. Soon, a bluish glow appears among them. Jairong arrived to deal with the creatures. He sank his foot into the face of the first one. Seeing what had just happened, the people there were surprised. The monster had been easily subdued. Jairong was focused and determined not to let the beasts attack innocents. Then he looked back at the people, asking what they were still doing there. He ordered them to run immediately from that place. He had seen this type of monster before. The single-horned ones shouldn't be that difficult to handle. While he thought, he needed to stay focused immediately. A motorcycle was coming toward him. He barely dodged it. He soon realized who had done that. It could only be a joke. A horror of horns with two of them. As the beast got closer to him, it was hit by a devastating kick. However, the result was not as expected. Jairong had to pull back. The lifespan of these monsters is between 5 and 6 years. Most of them end up dying without having the chance to grow another horn, but some manage to do that. Only 8% of the total live longer and can reproduce. In addition to the increased strength, which is beyond anything considered normal. Even being strong and fast, it's not something he can't overcome if necessary to kill this beast. With a sore foot, he knows that the biggest problem is their durability. Compared to the fool who said he was a tank, these guys are at least 3 or 4 times tougher. If he only had one of the tools he uses for work, the beast prepares to attack the boy once again. However, he dodged the blow, seeing only the destruction it caused. From a distance, he gains position to continue the fight. The beast doesn't seem satisfied yet with the destruction it has caused. Then, Jairong starts to look around. On the ground, there is a broken stop sign. Thinking quickly, he stepped on the sign, crushing it. This way, he managed to take its support, which is similar to a baton. The monster approaches him once more, furious. Emanating its aura, it waits for contact, as he now has a weapon in hand. Jae-rong strengthens his grip, focused. The beast stomps the ground harder than expected. This gave it a lot of momentum and it passed over the boy's head. That was not what he was expecting from it. Now, the beast is close to where several innocents are. They are completely terrified as they cannot do anything to protect themselves. The beast lunges at them, ready to have a snack. The difference in danger between 2-star and 3-star monsters is simply enormous. As for destructiveness, both are already beyond human capabilities. Normal people have no choice but to be killed by these beasts, and even an experienced adventurer without equipment can have problems with this. However, there is an exception to this situation. The foreigner managed to catch the beast's punch with his bare hand. He is definitely determined to fight. With a single blow, he pushed the beast away. This is the exception. Those who have trained their superhuman bodies to the limit, they are monsters too. The beast digs its claws into the ground to avoid being pushed further by the impact. He managed to push it back, but is aware that, without a weapon, he won't be able to inflict any damage. However, something caught his attention. The beast roared threateningly at him. From behind him, Jae-rong approached with his improvised baton. Using his techniques, he landed a precise blow to the back of the aberration's neck. The foreigner was surprised by the result. The beast is down, lifeless, with a hole in its back. Jae-rong sighs in relief after the fight. A loud noise catches your attention. It also piques the foreigner's curiosity. Near where they are, a strong explosion has occurred. In just 1 minute, the beast caused all that destruction. The foreigner says it will take a few more minutes for help to arrive. Such a sudden event is unexpected, and people die while they are talking. Chil Kang knows how to use an insult skill. Every tank knows about it. He basically screams at a high frequency, drawing nearby monsters towards him. Determined to become an adventurer, he will attract the attention of these monsters until help arrives. He asks Jae-rong to find shelter, as he doesn't know how to ask him to take risks there since they barely know each other. All they have done so far is play together for a few hours. However, Jae-rong told him to shout already. He imagines that the guy is a tank and knows how to use that skill, but he says it would be dangerous, and Jae-rong insists he planned to do it alone anyway. If he were alone, he would consider the possibilities, but he is not. And he said that Chil Kang is good at games, especially when it comes to protection, not to mention that he also wants to be an adventurer, and if he tries to do this, he will do his best. They don't have time to keep talking like this. It's time to act. The store is completely destroyed. A person is hiding under the counter. Behind her, the monster has just killed an innocent. The tank prepares to use his skill. In the store, the beast throws the lifeless body to the ground. Then it starts to destroy the counter to access another victim. At that moment, the tank's shout is made. Its effect echoes through the surroundings, attracting the monsters. Immediately, that beast stopped its attack, causing its victim to become confused. The girl responsible for the incident also heard it. She is intrigued about what might have happened. After using the skill, he catches his breath, taking an offensive stance, ready to fight the monsters that appear. It doesn't take long for them to gather at the epicenter of the shout. The strongest among them points towards the boys. Thus, the one-horned monsters advance to attack. He waits for them to come so he can fight too. However, he heard a noise above his head. There is a monster approaching in what would be his blind spot, but he managed to defend against the incoming strike. That was insufficient to hurt him. In his other hand, he began to concentrate his aura, and with a devastating blow, he hurled the beast away. However, that was not over yet, and he could not get distracted. More monsters are advancing, ready to attack at the same time. In the distance, the one with 2 horns hears something happening. There is someone else there, and it's coming from above. Jae-rong descends and lands on the ground near the beasts. There are 2 there with 2 horns on their heads. Looking at the crashed truck, he wonders what is happening there. They are gathering the bodies of the dead people in the truck. That's why there weren't so many bodies scattered in the street. Now, the 2 with horns are coming to attack him. Jae-rong just waits for them to get a little closer. They fight up close, and they are unequipped. The odds are low. In the current situation, it's easier for them to trip over each other than to help. So, he will focus on attracting the weaker ones since he is a tank. Jae-rong is closer, and it's his turn to attack now. His task is to take down the stronger ones, as he specializes in dealing damage. His improvised stick is ready to strike again. He passes by the monster so quickly that the beast doesn't even notice, but there are several marks on its body where the stick hit. Compared to the needle, this is much weaker. If he had his proper stick, things would have been very different. With a stick made of common materials, there's not much he can do. Even so, he is doing his best to fight. Although it's not the same, he is aware that there is a chance. That time, Zeke fought with him bare-handed. Aside from a few hits, none were as fast or as strong. Even so, they made him gradually slower. Now the monster is in the middle of its attack. Quickly, Jae-rong manages to push it away, delivering swift strikes. He knows that won't abort the beast's attack, so he dodges the incoming strike. The smallest mistake there will cost him his life. Then he strikes quickly once more. This is a unique opportunity for him despite the danger, so he can become even stronger. He needs to take advantage of it to emerge victorious using what he has at his disposal. Another beast approaches with the intent to attack, but in his mind, he remembers Zeke's dodges while they fought, and he managed to emulate very similar movements. After his father, this was the first time he met someone so strong. With this experience, he perfected the fourth skill, the rain of strikes, hitting the monster in front of him multiple times. After being brutally hit, he falls to the ground. Only, unexpectedly, his foot was grabbed by one of them. This immediately leaves him apprehensive. The monster threw him to the ground, breaking the concrete. Jae-rong spits out tomato juice after the violent impact. 2 against 1 is a delicate situation. Even if it's not fair, he has no choice. This is not a fight between humans. So, things might be different. Before he could react, the tank arrived, repelling the monster. For him, being lucky is also a skill. Looking through the cell phone camera, 2 people found their performance incredible. They defeated dozens of monsters, just the 2 of them, without any equipment. Dong-yoon is happy to have filmed all the action, but his friend says he only filmed because he was too scared to run away. Kim wants to know who these 2 are, as they seem younger than them. Judging by what they did, they would be gold-level hunters. They must study at the warrior school or are newbies who haven't made a name for themselves yet. In any case, he wants to post the video online and wants to know if his friend can make a thumbnail on his laptop. News about this will come out soon, and he doesn't want to miss out on the millions of potential views. Tired, the foreigner imagined that the rescue and containment team would arrive sooner. However, only the 2 there were truly able to resolve the situation. Jae-rong apologizes for interrupting him while he's in a cool pose, but he needs help getting off the ground. Thus, they finally hold hands. They are quite exhausted, and when asking if Jae-rong is okay, he said he's more inclined to say no. Maybe some fracture, but considering what he was expecting, it wasn't so bad. He found it amazing that Jae-rong managed to handle the 2 horned monsters. He returns the compliment, saying that his friend dealt with 9 in total and even helped him with the last ones. But he says his were only 2-star monsters. Since they were talking, he wants to know which school Jae-rong studies at. Perhaps the reality was different from what he had heard, as he heard that the schools there weren't that good. He apologizes, saying he didn't want him to think he spoke badly of his school, even though he imagines he's also from the warrior school. Without answering, Jae-rong wants to know how well-ranked his colleague is and how many stronger people there are. But he can't say, as he talks to few people, and, even after taking some tests, he doesn't know if they can analyze his skills. But he imagines he must be in the middle, probably. Now he wonders how he will manage to help his elf friend. In any case, there's one last thing there still. He wants to know if this monster plans to stay on top of the wagon, doing nothing. It was the only one not attracted by the taunting skill, and maybe there's something different about it. Only he doesn't think that's the special one among them. There's a lot of blood around the place, and surely there must be something still inside, and it's that something that is special. He thinks that for now, they should just keep watch, as they could easily take care of this last monster. A loud noise starts coming from the wagon. It also began to move violently. A hand seemingly came out of the hole in the ceiling. This surprised the boys. The monster is being pulled inside, violently. Not even its claws could hold it. For sure, something is devouring it now. The horned horrors live in a society similar to tribal. Those with 2 horns serve as parents and chiefs and lead hordes of at most 10. These small tribes unite, increasing their numbers and strength. As they are weak and the dungeons dangerous, these monsters are lower in the food chain and have their numbers controlled by predators. But there are rare situations where a mutant manages to develop a 3rd horn, and he is not the leader of a small tribe, but a king who leads hundreds, and even thousands. The King Horn Horror is a beast with a danger level of approximately 5 stars. It doesn't take long for him to see the 2 boys. Immediately, they become alert to what happened. A simple movement from him emanated a huge and destructive attack, forcing both to get out of the way. Being fast, he is already close to Jae-rong, ready to attack. He had to react quickly to avoid being fatally hit. The monster's hand is strong enough to destroy the improvised stick he was using. Its strike pierced his defense, hitting him in the stomach. Not finishing the attack, he was already prepared to deliver a kick, but his attack is interrupted. The tank had grabbed him with a body lock. The beast's feet hold it to the ground, destroying the pavement. As he finished pushing it, he realized the situation was getting complicated. The horror of horns had grabbed him with its hands. Without any difficulty, he managed to lift it off the ground, slamming it to the ground in a devastating manner, creating a huge crater. If there was one thing they didn't have now, it's time. 2 geniuses who would eventually live to reach the breadth of their potentials. In the current situation, they might not even manage that, even if they were capable of using everything they know. There is a great distance that cannot be covered. Jae-rong rises unsteadily, telling the monster not to do that. With his attention focused on the boy, it executes another attack. The red glow of the aura is almost reaching him. He is hit squarely, with no chance of defense. With this result, the monster seems to have fulfilled its desire to attack. However, he felt that something was still happening there. A monster far more dangerous than he is present on the battlefield. It is already night, and Seong is still bedridden in the hospital. Before disappearing, there weren't many people who knew him. The monster is now deeply terrified. There is no one in this world who can answer this precisely, what he truly left behind. 11 years ago, a lot happened. A man made an unexpected confession to the press. He recounted all his mistakes and asked the public for forgiveness. That had shocked the entire world. 12 hours before the boys entered that conflict with the monsters, Seiram was immersed in confusion. The truth she had learned on Sunday was the only thing running through her mind. She spent the next few days researching things about Jairong's father and whether he was wrongfully accused, certain that there must be many people coveting the place of someone who was once number one and had now lost his powers. What she doesn't understand is how the situation was handled. It starts with the various accusations and the accounts of those victims and the building of the case. Public opinion begins to divide, but since he is popular, the forged information did not completely tarnish his image. If it were her, she would have resisted until the end, but what Seong did, besides not fighting back, he accepted all the accusations made against him. After the conference, even his supporters turned their backs on him and Seong became a liar overnight. She doesn't know why he did that or if something was coercing him. Accepting the allegations is like throwing gasoline on a fire. She doesn't know if it's just her who noticed this, but there is something in his facial expressions. Instead of feeling wronged, it's as if he is accepting the consequences. Then, she came across even more shocking information. In his file, there is no record of him having family. She thinks that maybe he isn't really his son, but it makes more sense that he just wasn't registered, as they do resemble each other in some way. Maybe he accepted all those accusations, because Jairong might be involved in them in some way, and at that moment, he has no idea of what is truly happening to his body. He looks at his hand and feels it differently. The beast charges at him, furious. Its advance is relentless. It knows it needs to finish off the boy. And in light of this, there is one thing he is sure of now. His body could move. His reaction is perfect, striking the monster in the face. Nothing more, nothing less. All he needed to know now is that he is still capable of moving. And he is determined to destroy that monster in front of him. Using his abilities, he began to strike it multiple times. The pressure is immense, and the monster does everything it can to defend itself. It tries to move and escape the reach of the blows. Jairong knows it won't get far, and an attack from the beast comes toward him. That aura, despite being powerful, isn't fast enough to avoid the dodge. However, the beast had anticipated and is now on top of him in the air. Being close, it delivered another of its attacks. It doesn't take long for him to be surprised by the result. That was unable to hurt the boy, who immediately retaliated with a violent kick. The force of the impact is so great that he is thrown into the nearest building. He knows the fight is not over yet, but with the last two strikes, he managed to create a weakness in it. A blow to the chin using the needle. In his current state, it is possible to do this. But just as the mysterious aura appeared, it ended up disappearing. This is the worst time for it to have vanished. The monster emerged from the crater it was in. Jairong is very anxious, as he no longer feels the energy coursing through his body. Now there is nothing he can do to defend himself from this attack. Still following its trajectory, the beast notices something. The truck's container is descending upon his head. He ended up getting hit, and there's a reason why explorers have distinct roles. For everyone has a role they fit into best. The impact with the object was not enough to stop him. He charges towards the tank, completely enraged. Unable to dodge, he defended himself as best he could. The blow was indeed very strong. Being a tank, even with his body broken, he manages to persevere until the end. That is the main function of a tank, but he has been beyond his limit for a long time. Yet his attitude bought a little more time. Jairong is ready to execute his best attack. The monster knows it cannot avoid that. His fist, charged with aura, approaches rapidly. A hook is perfectly executed, landing on the monstrosity's jaw. That is the role of someone who has to deal damage. There are debris all over the area. On the ground lies the carcass of the monster, with its jaw shattered. A monster transport vehicle had been stolen. As a result, there were dozens of civilian casualties. After all this happened, the rescue team finally arrived. It didn't take long for the news to spread worldwide, giving popularity to the feat of those now two heroes. Caballino looks at the video, not knowing what is happening. The house has a large garden surrounding it. A little Jairong had hurt himself and was having his scrape treated. His father says that even small wounds need to be treated, otherwise they could get worse later. He wants to know if his father feels pain, as he bleeds a lot when fighting monsters. In response, He said that besides feeling pain, he also feels fear, but he does his best to hide his own pain, as his job is to prevent others from getting hurt. When he was little, his greatest wish was to be like his father, but there was always something in his mind, that this was definitely not what his father wanted for him. He said to find another career and felt great sorrow whenever the subject came up. Maybe that's the reason, who knows? For him not to pursue the career of an explorer, and he never spoke to his father about it. He thought that once he grew up, his father would tell him the reason, but he can no longer do that now. His eyes have just opened, and he looks at the unusual ceiling. There's something about that feeling that makes him feel nostalgic. A figure beside him wants to know if those words were directed at him. So the boy looks to the side, startled. Zeke says he is only there now because it was determined. As soon as he sat up, he felt pain coursing through his body, and Zeke said he shouldn't move too much. Although the treatment was successful, he should have been in a coma due to the extent of his injuries and will be healed in a month. Until then, he should focus on recovering, as he has much to prepare for. The boy said that thanking is the right thing to do, but there's something he would like to say. Zeke says that if it's about his father, yes, they know each other and have worked together. His hand moved very quickly, so much so that Zeke became focused, but he just took the apple that was in his hands. Seeing his expression, he asked if he thought he would hit him or something like that. Zeke says that was not the reaction he was expecting. The boy says he doesn't know what his expectations are, but he just wanted to know if he knew his father or not. And, judging by the difference in treatment now, he thinks they were more than just co-workers. Holding the apple, he takes a deep breath. He told him to get out of there and die, or that he should cut his arm with the knife he has in his hands to prove a point. He thought Zeke imagined that and asked how his performance was. He said he tried hard to make it look real and apologized if he took it personally. Zeke brushed it off and said he expected a more emotional reaction as soon as he heard the news. Maybe he would have had that more emotional reaction 3 years ago. Back then, that was the only thing that came to his mind. He wanted to take revenge on all the people who turned their backs on his father and made him end up like he is now. Hearing this, he wants to know what made him change his mind. But he thinks he just matured, and what he thought before was just madness. He isn't even strong enough to defeat him, let alone seek revenge. The most important thing for him is to get enough money to pay for the hospital. That is his priority. He doesn't know when a cure will arrive, but he will do everything within his power. In fact, he will strive to overcome any difficulties in his path. Zeke says he is only there to ask him a few questions. He wants to know why he is not formally registered as Seung's son, and who took care of him after his father became bedridden. He was raised only by his father, and was in danger if anyone knew who his father was. Moreover, he grew up alone. Zeke realizes that this is indeed the case. Then, he wanted to know if the boy had heard the name Duganawig, but he doesn't know who that person is. It's not a person, it's the name of a dragon, the world destroyer. He is the source of the poison that torments his father. Besides being the most dangerous dragon, he continues to live in the world to this day. Dragon is a name that evokes terror in the hearts of people. A few years after the joining, the walls were completed with the help of other peoples. With the explorers' skills increasing, humanity was no longer at risk of extinction. Even so, there were some singular and dangerous events, like a being strong enough to destroy the walls. That's what a dragon is capable of, stronger, smarter, and craftier than other species. And it was common for them to show hostility towards humans. Among all monsters, dragons are easily the most dangerous. They did not see humans with hatred, but as a target to govern and exploit. Their mistake was underestimating humans. They thought they wouldn't overcome the dungeons, and thus did not attack them. As soon as there was no more order in the world, they would position themselves as gods in exchange for protection from dangers. Jae-rong thinks they should thank the dragons for having held back. But with things progressing differently than planned, they began to attack humans. It was exactly at that time that his father appeared. With strategy and determination, he was the explorer who showed that dragons, even if powerful, can be defeated. The news that he had defeated a dragon spread, and things began to change. He heard that too, and that's when the dragons started to hide. But Zeke corrects him. In fact, they just changed their strategy. They are cunning, even capable of changing their appearance. Since they could not destroy humans just by force, they infiltrated humanity. This is confidential information, and he only shared it because he is Seung's son. Duganawig was the last dragon Seung pursued before he fell ill. If he is defeated, it is possible to produce an antidote for Seung. If he intends to do this in the future, he needs to get stronger and stronger, as he will help him kill the dragon. He is already well enough to get out of bed. Leaning on the window, he looks at the card he received. He remembered what he had heard. If he didn't think it was possible, he should just ignore the idea. But if that is true, he would never miss this opportunity to help his father. However, Zeke is categorical in saying that it is not the boy who decides this. To seize this chance, he needs to rise to the top. Dragons are cunning and have already infiltrated society, hiding behind facades, waiting for the moment to act. Even if this is revealed to the world, without capturing one, it makes no sense to do so. As soon as that is done, they will just hide again, and that will bring panic to people. To prevent this, they need to be precise and quick. Only then can they stop them from fleeing and hiding again. In recent years, they have been preparing a team to deal with Duganawig. All are experienced and skilled adventurers, capable of subduing a dragon. If he doesn't get strong enough, no matter how much he wants to be part of this, he will not be accepted by the others. It is not ideal for there to be someone in this team who could cause delays. This not only jeopardizes the operation but also the safety of everyone. If all of this is true, he wants to know how much time he has to prepare, as he knows they won't wait for him. They still don't know where the dragon is, but they plan to do this in 2 years or less. And it's as the boy said, when the opportunity comes, they won't wait for him. As he leaves, Zeke says he doesn't care what the boy thinks of him. If he doesn't want to see him again, that's fine, but he promises him one thing. Whether with them or not, they will hunt that dragon at all costs. These are the words that stuck in his mind. That is a light of hope, the true chance to heal his father. This sudden information was everything he wanted to know. That it is possible. It brought hope. It also brought more than that. Fear that perhaps he won't be able to prepare for the mission that will avenge his father. What he has so far is not enough, but he will manage, no matter what needs to be done. All this time, he had no hope for a cure, and now he has good news. This small spark of hope gave Jaryong a motivation he had never felt in his life. While washing his face, he heard the door open. The girl who enters is happy that he is already awake. She asked if the boy feels any pain, and he says he only feels muscle pain. The doctor will explain the details, but he will feel this way for a few more days, since they had to reconstruct his arm almost entirely. When he was rescued, his arm was in critical condition. All caution was necessary, or the risk of amputation would become real. It was the presence of a high-level healer that made the surgery a success. Looking at his arm, he wants to ask her something. He wants to know what happened to his friend who fought with him. The other boy is doing very well. His recovery is truly phenomenal, and he was discharged on the day he arrived at the hospital. Hearing this, Jaryong became curious about how many days he has been in the hospital. Before he could ask, the girl wanted to know if she could take a picture with him, so she took a selfie right there. Jaryong wants to know if he can be discharged too. He can, but if he goes out the front door, he will have problems. The entire hospital is full of reporters, and everyone wants a chance to interview him as soon as he leaves. He has no idea why they would be there, so the girl says he needs to know this soon. Showing him the phone screen, the boy was surprised. That could have turned into a horrible accident. If it weren't for the two of them, there would certainly have been 100 casualties or more. Everyone wants to know who he is and has been going to the hospital incessantly. Handing him a bag, she said it was his friend who sent it to be delivered. If he doesn't want to expose his identity, he should put this on and leave through the back of the hospital. Seiram made it. There must be some spell of identity confusion there. But upon opening the bag, he realizes there is a rope inside. That wasn't quite the type of exit he wanted to make. Since he has no options, he threw the rope out the window and made his way down. The girl calls down from above not to worry about the photo. She will only give publicity to her when the boy is already a well-known explorer. He waves back, still not understanding the magnitude of the situation. Seiram is inside her car. She is waiting for Jaryong to come to her so they can leave. She wants to know if the rope was really the only possible choice. Without answering, she asked him if he preferred to be discovered, and indeed, he doesn't want that. But he wants to know what that bag is in the car. It's clothes she bought for him, as well as a new phone, which she assumes his old one must have broken. That left him emotional, and she asked him not to have that reaction. In any case, she doesn't even know where to start about what happened. An incident like that happening near him more than that was able to destroy that monster. But his life is full of such events, and he wants to know where they are going now. The truth is, she wanted to rest, but they only have that day, and nothing more. If he wants tailored clothes, he has to go today, but he says he already has clothes with him. Seiram says she is not talking about regular clothes, but the ones he will wear as an explorer. And indeed, she hopes he understands how lucky he is. The best tailor on the planet agreed to make armor for him. Armor material is divided into 3 categories. The first is clothing, normal material. It has the worst defense capability among all of them, but as it can be easily targeted by support spells, it is generally used by mages and healers who stay away from the front lines. The second category is steel, which is indeed very hard, but it ends up being extremely heavy. The ore from the dungeons is denser, and without strength and stamina, it is impossible to wear armor like that. Among them, leather is the middle ground. It is not too heavy, but it ends up being solid enough. Ideal for those focused on dealing damage in close combat, like him. Maybe he should consider wearing armor from now on. Saeram is also curious and wants to know how he defeated the monster. She wants the details, but Jaryong says someone filmed it, so she can just watch it to understand. But the video doesn't capture everything, it only shows him defeating those with 1 and 2 horns. It doesn't show how he defeated the 5-star one, which surprised him, as he didn't know it was such a strong monster. Indeed, it was quite strong, so he suspected something like that. Even if he and Chilkang were perfectly prepared, it should have still been impossible. But that mysterious power emerged, and he can't say what it was. She keeps insisting on why he doesn't say anything about what happened. But the truth is that he can't explain it either. It just happened, in the best style of, I don't know, I just know it was like that. That makes no sense. Even professionals need to join a team to fight against a monster like that. Even if he isn't lying and he's not, it's hard to believe. This made her feel embarrassed, as geniuses are truly exceptional. However, she told him to be cautious. Things from then on would be tiring. It's not just the reporters, but the two of them are now the epicenter of all this. Chilkang got unlucky and had to give several interviews for 4 consecutive days. He even appeared on television. But during all that time, he avoided talking about Jaryong as much as possible. Even simple questions like his name, he refused to answer without his friend's permission. This reminded him of the favor he had asked of him. If anyone asked for details about what happened, he was to say that he also didn't know. Because if he could keep his identity protected, he would prefer it to be that way. Chilkang agreed and said he would do as requested. The girl wants to know how they ended up getting close to each other, but he doesn't know either. He advised him to stay off the radar until he could take the admission test. He wants to know if there's a reason for that. On his phone, his manager says he wants to talk to him soon. Saeram has been reading about the test, and the more she learns, the more she realizes how difficult it is. In recent years, the chance of approval is 1 in 100, and Jaryong thinks there are many people who apply just for the sake of it, and they must be, at least, worse than Saeram. Seeing that she got upset, he said he didn't mean to imply that she is bad, but she told him to shut up. But the truth is that, in terms of skill, he isn't wrong, as she is a person of enormous potential. It's just that he should see things from another perspective. People lacking skill don't do things alone. In fact, they do things together, and that's when he realized what it was about. In the test, they form teams. The candidates are usually children of adventurous parents. Thus, this contact makes it easier to form teams for their children. Almost all candidates come from such backgrounds, and it's those who manage to get approved. If his identity is exposed, he will soon become the target of all of them. Even if the school discourages this, that's not what happens. He might even try for a special admission, but that's not what he wants. Even though that's true, there are those who get approved alone, and that's what he needs to know. He will defeat all of them and pave his own way. He likes his motivation, but it seems a bit naive. Meanwhile, she already wants to change clothes. Pointing to where the bathroom is, she told him to change and meet her at the end of the hallway. At the reception desk, the secretary is working. Saeram says she has an appointment with the CEO of the place. She just told her to wait a few minutes. On the phone, she passes on the visitor's information, and she said she would tell her about what happened. Unfortunately, he had an unavoidable commitment and is not available. That's unfortunate, as he knows there won't be availability on another day for this. He said he would compensate her for the time, but Saeram says it's not about money. She needs that because of the admission exam for the warrior school. That cancellation could mess everything up. Someone nearby said she looked familiar and wanted to know her name. There's a saying among adventurers that the current generation is different from theirs. The first generation paid with blood for progress. Since then, everything has advanced in terms of technology. What has also changed are the circumstances of each one's birth. The first generation retired and provided everything for their children. It wasn't just talent that was passed down, but also a quality education from the earliest moments of childhood. This makes them wonder who are the biggest beneficiaries of this, and many would say it's this girl. That is Han Gayun, who knows that the young lady is a first-year student at the warrior school. She wants to know if she knows her, as she is the student council president. In any case, she would like to cut the introduction between them. The CEO over there is her uncle, and she is the reason he had an unavoidable commitment. In light of this, he understands that she might be upset about having her commitment cancelled, and it would be better to say that, instead of having her commitment cancelled, he preferred to give his spot to her. In fact, he would be grateful for having helped. This is a better story to tell. Saeram is aware of the influence that this clown has, for he has already heard stories about what she is capable of doing. As the two talk, Jaryong has just arrived. Since she is Saeram's senior, it seems they have no other option. Even not knowing her, he thanked the guy. But he hadn't finished speaking. He told her to cut the chit-chat and get lost. She certainly didn't expect that at all. This unexpected interaction made the secretary anxious. The girl said that the kid has guts and wants to know who he is. Saeram tries to prevent them from continuing to talk. Her hand wavers briefly. It was as if she had dealt a blow to Serum. Immediately she felt what could have happened. She wasn't talking to her. So it wasn't meant to be said, but Serum felt as if she had been cut off anyway. The clown didn't ask anything of that idiot. So she should know her place and stay quiet. Jaryong introduces himself, says he is 17 years old and lives in Gwanak-gu. He is 1.80 m, doesn't know how much he weighs now, and his favorite food is sausage with sautéed vegetables. That should be all, but the most important thing is that he is preparing to enter the warrior school. And right now, he is considerably disappointed, because even in that school, there are arrogant people like her who think they are much more than they are. She smiled like a psychopath, her hand even trembled with rage. Now he felt the same as Serum. He said he doesn't really hate people like him, that is if he can sustain what he had said, since he wanted to transfer to that school. He hasn't even taken the exam yet and already behaves like someone who studies there, but he smiles a little, and asked if that was how she did it. But he is curious to know what she thought, as it was the first time he tried. He is curious to know from her if he meets the standard she expected. Now the girl was irritated by the interaction. From afar, her uncle calls her by name. This is Seongwoo, and he wants to know what the hell they are doing there. He wanted to know why she visited him without informing, as he even took the phone from his hands. It's only been a week since her last incident. Just a week. He wants to know if she wants her father to get angry once again. The adult apologizes to both of them, as his niece tends to act on her own. Serum says he doesn't need to apologize, but she is deeply grateful. Since it's all just the clown's nonsense, things aren't that bad. But the rumors are true. She is overwhelmed and only values those who are strong. Jaryong asked her to come a little closer to him. He wanted to know what exactly that annoying girl does, as she doesn't seem like an ordinary senior. She is the student council president, in other words. She is just the strongest student in the entire school right now. Students in these schools receive temporary licenses. In the gem rank, they can go to dungeons under the supervision of a professional. With this license, students can use their breaks to explore dungeons. Thus, they can gather experience for when they become actual explorers. However, there are a few exceptions to this. Those who belong to the student council are seen as professionals, even if unregistered. Besides having political influence with the school administration, they can also join attack teams against 5-star monsters, or higher. They are what is expected to be the next generation of ranked individuals. As she is in her 3rd year, she is 2 years older than them. That would be the case, but she is still in her 2nd year, and Jaryong wants to know if she failed. That's not it. In fact, she stole the position from the previous president, but he wants to know how that can happen. Serum had already told him that the school is basically governed by strength and skill. Students can join the council starting from the 1st semester of their 2nd year, and that's what she did. She quickly unsheathed her sword. Thus happened the biggest event in the school, and she challenged all the council members. Before the 1st semester ended, she defeated all of them, becoming the youngest council president in history. Despite everything, she said she was leaving there. Serum is relieved that nothing bad happened. Only Jaryong would like to make a bet with her. Since she seems busy, it will be quick. I heard she is famous, and must have her reasons for being a jerk for no reason. The bet is simple. If he loses, the time is hers. Serum tries to apologize for him, thinking the boy is completely crazy in the head. If it's a bet, she has to face a consequence if she doesn't win. He really liked that she is smart and asked if she knows what it means to cast a shadow. It's a basic form of hand-to-hand combat training. Whoever touches their opponent first, or puts them in an unfavorable situation, wins. If he loses, he will give the time to her. And it's perfect because there's no risk of traumatic injury from a blow. Now, if she lost the bet, as soon as he enters the school, he should take the president's position in her place. That's some of the worst craziness. There's no way she can accept that proposal. But it's interesting enough, so she ended up accepting the challenge. After hearing that, she even learned the boy's name. Since they couldn't do this in the hallway, they went to a workshop where the durability of the pieces is tested. Both are ready to start. The annoying one is quite confident that she will win. The same can be said for Jaryong. Serum, on the other hand, is very anxious. That is unnecessary. Their problem had already been resolved. Not to mention she has a badly injured arm, and even if she wins, she won't give up the position to him. But he says he won't win. Now Serum doesn't know what to say. Even if healthy, she wouldn't stand a chance. She is too strong. If that's the case, why did he make the bet with her then? But Jaryong tells her not to worry. It's normal for her to be confused, but she should trust him more. In the end, it won't be a bad trade. It's just that Serum doesn't understand the purpose of it. She thinks he intends to lose to find her good side, but he can't be that stupid. Her uncle says he has nothing to say except to apologize. He knows she should be a leader, but instead of being receptive, she ends up being harsh with the truths. And he apologized once again to Serum, who said it wasn't necessary. All of this is happening because the boy is also hard-headed, but he doesn't agree with what she said. Even not knowing the boy, he can feel that he is very confident. Then, the annoying one says he must have already noticed. She won't use both arms to be a bit fairer to him, but that's not important, as it will serve as an excuse when she loses. All this audacity makes her interested, so she started to prepare her base. In the blink of an eye, she had already disappeared. He is surprised, preparing to react. He managed to dodge the first attack. This surprised both Seiram and the annoying girl's uncle, but for different reasons. Seiram was surprised by the speed of the attack, which was almost imperceptible. In this type of training, someone has to accept the risk of exposing themselves. But Gayun showed no hesitation, nor fear. She simply executed her attack, with speed, to protect her immense pride. Seiram knows that if it were her, she would never have been able to react. Then, the tailor breaks the silence. Han doesn't know if he is the first to ask this question. He wants to know if this student is really preparing to transfer to the warrior school. Looking at the data that was sent to him, he has no doubt that the boy is talented. But what he sees with his eyes is beyond what he expected. He was also an adventurer, full of energy, and he was aware that Jaryong's intention was not to assert himself, but to learn more about who this person is. Gayun is already very strong for her age. With a bit more experience, she would easily be on par with the lower ranked. The boy just wants to have an idea of where he needs to get to. Not only that, but the distance he needs to cover. And so far, he has managed to dodge with mastery. After several blows, he gained a bit of distance. Gayun says it has been a while. Since she entered the school, no one has managed to dodge her attacks for so long. She is impressed with him. She definitely didn't expect him to last this long. The arm isn't the only thing injured. Judging by how he is now, he must be far from his full physical capacity. But Jaryong says she hasn't seen him at full capacity yet, and shouldn't presume that. Speaking more quietly, he said he saw. He was quite fast when he faced the horned horror. He watched the video hundreds of times and is a fan of him, the anonymous hero that no one knows yet. Returning to speak in a normal tone, he suggested they define it as a tie, and that they could decide this at another opportunity. As soon as he enters the school and is fit, they will continue, because she doesn't want things to end there. So, he can continue with her uncle, but Jaryong said he doesn't believe those words. All this confidence. She doesn't know what's happening yet. A tie is not something he wants to accept there, because the position of student president is at stake. Since he doesn't intend to give up, it's better not to waste any more time. He is ready to continue, but the three thought the same thing. He is bluffing. He is wasting the best chance he has received so far since the bet started. This is a problem because she likes ambitious people. And what he has shown now was not ambition, just recklessness. Jaryong looks at her with a discreet smile, and took a few steps in her direction. After those words, he was the first to move. Now it's his turn to attack in this fight. Surprisingly, she needed to immerse herself in the moment. Even her uncle didn't expect this. By a hair, Jaryong almost hits her with everything. Seiram thought he had been holding back all this time. But that wasn't it, and the tailor realizes he was completely wrong in his assessment. He wasn't just seeking a test of strength with Gayun. In that brief moment, he managed to learn and replicate her movements. He is a monster, and it's not about losing or winning that. His intention is to learn Gayun's technique. Finishing the attack, he said that's how she did it. Having been a smuggler since he was young, there was a rule he followed strictly. She wasn't supposed to be watching, as there's more he wants to see from her. And the rule is this: never make a deal to lose. Technique is not just about using strength to knock someone out, but rather the refinement of movement to extract the best from an individual. From the way one breathes, to the way one takes any step. What makes each of these details important is the timing of execution. People dedicate their time and lives to perfect this, gaining knowledge through repetition, trial, and error. The knowledge is then passed on so that the next generation can refine it. Even with talent, it's not possible to surpass the limit of knowledge alone. Being naturally talented, Jaryong became strong on his own, but as he began to develop less after puberty, he faced a brutal truth. There was a barrier in front of him that prevented him from getting stronger. Only by breaking down that wall could he become stronger. So he got rid of the sling that was limiting him. He asked why she was so hesitant, as he had been quite clear. He is sure he will enter the school, and that she said she would be pleased to teach a novice like him. It seems that, in fact, she wants to avoid losing, and he understands that. This left her speechless for a moment, and she asked her uncle if he remembered what she had asked last time. An attack squad wanted to make a deal with her, and he advised her to pay a visit to build her reputation. She will listen to him, but asks that, in return, he doesn't hold her back. This makes him anxious, wondering what she intends to do, and Gayun tells her opponent that he wanted to see her dodge. If that's the case, she will show. It was time for him to make her dodge his attack, only she was already almost landing a kick on the boy. He watches the attack closely, waiting for an opening. Avoiding contact, he found what he wanted. Every movement has a beginning and an end, just like a transition phase between them. When observing someone, it's possible to presume what will be done next. Gayun is using this to her advantage. By skipping a few steps, it's possible to deceive the observer. It's not just difficult to predict what will come next, but each movement seems faster than it actually is. This is the result of decades of development, something Gayun's father created, and became known for being able to execute it masterfully. It's called Flash, an incredibly fast technique. Jaryong did this twice in a row, and in a way that Gayun still hasn't shown she has control over. This is not a technique that can be replicated just by understanding its concept. Flexibility, reflexes, and above all, timing are essential for perfect execution. Any mistake and the technique doesn't happen. Even at his physical peak, he didn't master the technique until shortly after his 20s. It took 3 months just to start understanding the beginning. He needed to refine it even to train with his niece, and the boy already does all this effortlessly. As Han noticed, Jaryong is in terrible health. He is almost out of energy after everything he has done. Yet even with all this happening in his body, he moves as if he is at the peak of his vigor. He felt a pleasure in being accomplished, as he realized he could become even stronger than he already is. It's not an orthodox way of learning, but he also has a good reason to get even stronger. And he learned exactly how to do it. He didn't learn because he needed to, but because he discovered that learning is fun. Now, he doesn't remember the pain in his body or the fatigue in his lungs. All he wants now is to keep overpowering Gayun. She realizes she is in a delicate situation. Jaryong skillfully pressures her with his new technique. Contact is imminent, and there's nothing that can be done. This made Han need to intervene. A great silence fills the place. Han stood still in the middle of the way. Gayun had told him not to try to separate them. However, he is glad it ended before he needed to get involved. Despite everything, it's regrettable. Gayun admits she has lost the bet, but Jaryong says the same thing she does. Now they are both at a great impasse. She said she wouldn't use her hands, but Jaryong didn't agree with that part. Using hands or not, he still got hit. She might be saying this out of pride, but to be honest, she isn't that strong. Then, the uncle said, there's no need to decide who won or not. It's his fault that things have come to this point, and given his health, it's not good for them to continue. So, they should decide on a draw and that it was a chance to learn more. As soon as the boy fully recovers, they can have a formal challenge between them, if that's what he suggests. Gayun looks at him threateningly and tells him to listen. They will meet at school, and if he fails to show up or loses to someone before losing to her, she will never forgive him in this life. Despite everything, for him, the fight was definitely an excellent learning moment. As they were leaving, Gayun asked for Seyram's name, which she told her. If she is the one sponsoring the boy, she would like to apologize. She doesn't know how good she is as an adventurer, but from what it seems, she's not a complete useless. She has a good eye for people, and Jaryong wasn't the only one having fun that day. Now the two are sitting on the couch, waiting. This whole wait was killing him. Seyram is happy that, after everything, he doesn't have to go to the hospital, but he would like to. And after everything, he is surprised. He didn't imagine Gayun would say she lost. As she saw everything, she believes Jaryong won, but he doesn't think that way. He was the first to break the rules. When he took off the sling to attack, neither of them was fighting with the intention to win. With that in mind, he was the first to cross the line. In the end, he was already going all out, and if he had hit her, he could have caused severe injuries. If he were in her position, he would have used his hands too, as there was no other choice. Seyram wants to know what would have happened if they had fought at full strength. For someone who didn't want him to fight, she seems to have gotten too immersed in what she saw. He then gets up from the couch. He realized they had arrived. In the room, two people finally enter. Seyram turns to see who they are. It's Han, who says he is grateful they waited all this time. He ended up bringing some pizzas for them to eat. After eating, he apologized to them. His niece caused some trouble, and he should have taken them out to eat. But he is already grateful for the pizzas. Food for him is enough as long as there's plenty. Adventurers like him eat 5 times more. Seyram hadn't thought of that before, but he was out cold for 4 days without eating anything. Anyway, his workshop doesn't work with leather, but with a similar material. They use fibers from high-class monsters as raw material. They make a strong combination, intending to be the best clothing for its user. This material is lighter and more durable than leather. Thinking of Jaryong, he already knows which material combination and type of clothing would suit him best. He has seen what he is capable of, and already has his personal information. There's just one more thing he keeps questioning nonstop. The last stage of production is to immerse the material in oil to increase its resistance and durability. Seyram already knew this, which is why he asked for the material to be made with the best available. But, in the current situation, obtaining this oil is almost impossible. They use the oil from the voracious whale of the deep seas. They had a monopoly on that material, but due to unexpected circumstances, hunting them is now non-existent. There are materials that can be used in its place with almost no practical difference. But this implies a breach of contract, a mistake that shouldn't happen. And if they want to change their minds, that's fine. You can even recommend them to a master leather worker. He is willing to bear this loss for them, for the time it will take. Jaryong says he doesn't mind. If the quality difference isn't that great, it's no problem. He doesn't even use good equipment anyway. And, above all, he wants to use the equipment that this guy makes. Moreover, he asked if it was him who taught his niece. He doesn't understand equipment, but he would feel better knowing it was made by someone strong. If that's the case, they will continue with him. Sairam knew something was wrong that day. It's been 10 years since he retired, but he was grateful to hear that. And he was happy to receive that compliment. Sairam doesn't know where all the food went. If they trust him, he will give his best to make this equipment. The more he thinks about it, the more disappointed he becomes with what happened last week. There was a hunt, and he thought he could get good materials from it. He wanted to know if they had heard about the Imperial Wasp, and Sairam mentioned royal jelly. But in that monster, there is another material considered excellent among those who make equipment. The black wax, which is used to protect the queen. Only a few can produce this wax for protection. Showing his phone to him, he asked if that was what he was talking about. He had a photo, but since he lost his old phone, he had to improvise and draw. Now he is surprised that the guy has seen this firsthand. The truth is that he smuggled that. But he said he saw it when he went to Sairam's house. Rich people really have a lot of things. Now, he is in the hospital. He should have seen someone before going there. It will take an hour, and the manager should be available during that time as well. He asked if he had eaten, and he indeed had, but he would be up for eating again, as long as he helps pay, of course. The door slowly opens where he is. He needed to hang up now, but he asked him to call him as soon as he arrived, because the plans he had for that day just arrived. Zeke says it's been a while, and Caballino suggests they talk outside. 11 days ago, they talked about some things in the hospital. It's not good for them to make too much noise in his room. An attack team led by one man fell apart. They can just stay quiet if that's the case. Caballino says Zeke is still the same, easily irritating people. These two used to be allies, but not everything is friendly between them. He ended up getting too worked up seeing him. Jaewon, or Caballino, is a retired adventurer, was number 5 before that, and since they are on the same side, Zeke should shut up and follow him. Sairam wants to know if her friend will continue to surprise her this way. And she wants to know more about that black wax he has. She imagines it's the item that was in the chest and should have been informed about it. But he didn't even know what it was. Still, he thanked her for acting discreetly. After Argeus, nothing has been easy to do, and she wants to know now if he would be busy. And he indeed is. He needs to meet someone. If it weren't too far, he could give him a ride, and soon he felt his phone vibrating. It's his uncle Zeke on the line, so he asked him to wait a bit, and he agreed, as he won't be late for his appointment. The nights are already getting cold this time of year. It's the tailor who said that, and he wants to know if Sairam has already left. But she just went to make a call. It shouldn't take long, and the tailor said he doesn't need to talk to her. He actually just came to smoke in peace. He said the skill he learned today is called Flash. It was created by his brother, Guyun's father, and he also participated in its development. Hearing this, he ended up feeling embarrassed, immediately apologizing to him. He should have imagined that the creator of this technique would be there. He apologized for using it without permission, but the tailor isn't there to complain about that. There is no exclusivity for this kind of thing. In fact, they hesitate to teach anyone, but it's not a demerit or wrong to learn by observation. If it's easy to copy, it's normal for it to be used by more people eventually, but it is not easy to copy at all. At first, he thought Jaryong had a weak foundation, as he was never taught by anyone. But upon seeing him in combat, he realized that if he were a lazy person, he would never have lost the basic teachings. He doesn't know what happened for him to learn this way, but he has advice for him. He is talented, and with time and dedication, he will discover his true potential. Becoming a great adventurer will not be a challenge for him. This is a potential he is not far from. However, in this world, it is not common for prodigies to be admired. Of course, there will be those who will admire him and help, but there will always be those who will never overcome their envy and will try to control or destroy him. And perhaps he is already aware of stories like these. The boy wants to know if the advice is to hide his potential to avoid unwanted attention. But in fact, it is the opposite. He should never conceal his talents. After all, it is not something he is capable of doing, and if he manages to do so, it will only attract people's disdain. So, it is better for him to do what he thinks is best. He should show what he truly is, an unreachable genius. As long as he is able, he must do his best and absorb as many techniques as he considers useful. Even if it could become a problem, he should not bow down as he just did. Instead, he should hold his head high and raise his voice. It is he who decides what is right or wrong. That choice belongs to the strongest. If he learns a technique and perfects it, he can even say that it belongs to him. He understands how the boy must be feeling, but in the world of explorers, strength is what governs them. His niece's personality is that taken to the extreme, but he does not think of stifling her behavior. She is demanding, and even so, they will never underestimate her, and he thinks he should do the same. Then Seiram appears shouting for her friend. He did not expect the tailor to be there too, but it was for him to talk to his uncle. He doesn't know why, but she insisted that he should. She knew he would be there, so she asked if the boy was nearby and said she wanted to talk to him. Then he takes out his phone and Zeke apologizes in case he was in the middle of something. He hadn't planned to talk to him so soon, but a problem occurred, and he should see him soon. He did not expect this unexpected invitation, but he understood the message and said he would meet him immediately. In an abandoned place, they continue on their way. It seems there is a secret path that leads to the dungeon. Through the subway, there are several accesses that lead to the dungeons. That one, in particular, belonged to them. Zeke is in torn clothes and said that he is inside. He hadn't planned to call him, but he said he would rather die than be healed by him, which is why he called him. He doesn't know what is happening, but he realized they do not get along, and it seems he and the manager had a disagreement. The young man says that if he had known he would arrive so quickly, he would have asked for a shirt, but Jaryong doesn't even know who he is. He said he liked his eyes and wants to know if he was the one who cut Zeke's cheek. He is already quite famous in the attack group, the boy who defeated a high-rank monster. The captain is even eager to meet him, and Zeke cuts off their small talk. They are leaving, and it no longer makes sense to stay there. Saram goes with him, but asked him to call her later. On the other side of the door, there is a reddish light. Jaryong goes over to see what happened. He was frustrated because he thought he really needed help, and he does need it. His body and pride are in tatters. He doesn't know why that bastard went there, and he didn't expect him to come to him accompanied. Even knowing the answer, he asked if the boy has a lighter, and he just wants to know what that light is, as the sun is already set. If he doesn't have a lighter, he asked if he could get that for him, because he is too tired to move. Below them, there is a lot of fire and destruction. Now he wants to know what the two had fought about. It wasn't quite that. He just wanted to burn Zeke until nothing was left. The guy who came with him is impressive. He is not a tank, but he has good defense and the potential to be a big name in the future if he trains for another 10 years. Jaryong says he has something to tell him, but the manager already knows. If it is to stop being a smuggler, he is free, but if he is to become an adventurer, he has a condition for that. It is good that he learns next month what he is going to teach. If he can't, he should reconsider his plans. It won't be easy, as it is not within his talent scope. Jaryong doesn't imagine that it is. But it seems that is exactly it. He will teach him magic. The protagonist asks if he heard correctly, for he wishes to know more about the subject, as he is very impressed. But his future mentor is too tired to stand, needing immediate assistance. This does not seem to be ordinary fatigue, as even his body is cold, leaving the boy with no choice. He would have to carry him in his arms. At first, making coffee with the beans was a bit difficult, but soon he got the hang of making tasty coffee. If he had known the process was so therapeutic, he would have started doing it much earlier, as it would be a lovely hobby during his prime. The other boy did not like that phrase, as he thinks his friend is still in his prime. That way of speaking is as if he were retired. Jaewon was only 26 years old at that time, and the protagonist's father warned that he is indeed retired. The manager would like him to be able to take down Duganawig. All he needed was to form a capable squad for that. But he would have to overcome the bureaucracy for that. I already understand his enemy's strategy as well, who, by hiding, ends up handing over the victory. But that is what worries the manager a lot. This decision will strengthen his enemy. He is also upset, as people do not give credit to the true hero. Demonstrating to be a loyal friend, he said he would take care of things for him. He decided he would attack the dragon and fix the things that had happened. The heated conversation ended up waking the child. It seems the manager did not know of her existence until now. That little one with big eyes and very well-mannered is named Jaryong. Only now was he introduced to the son of the great hero. He asked the boy to go play for a bit, as he needed to talk to that adult, who would have dinner with them. It was then that he revealed to the manager that his health would not last much longer. Zeke was doing everything possible to treat him, but his body is also developing resistance to the medicine. Soon, all his abilities will deteriorate, including cognitive ones. He has at most 4 years until he becomes unrecognizable. This news left the manager shaken, but the hero had already made his choice. He took the opportunity to ask him to take care of the child if the worst were to happen. The manager had never seen that man show weakness. This was the first and only time. The only opportunity he asked a favor from someone, not because he is proud, but because he felt too responsible for his own. He wished for the little one a normal life, A life different from the one he had, a life in which he finds happiness. That was the small favor he had asked the manager, who could never refuse the last request of his great friend. His health condition eventually deteriorated. The manager remembers that part very well. He asked the boy what time it was. It is still early that day, but tomorrow is almost over. The manager just hopes he hasn't been treated by Zeke, and Jaryong confirms that this did not happen. He considered taking him to the hospital, but it would be too difficult to explain the situation, so he medicated him at home. The manager soon realized what had happened. In the past, he had received this as a gift for starting to work. Jaryong was only 14 years old and thought that syringe was to be used on monsters, but learned it was an emergency medicine. It may not be a sensational item, but it solves the problem in emergencies, serving as an antidote for almost everything. It is almost exclusive to adventurers, and he thought it wouldn't be a bad gift for the boy. From then on, he should buy the next ones with his own money. That made the boy quite happy, and the manager just watched him. He warned that the boy's choice about the path he wants to take cannot be changed. Once he starts, he cannot simply stop working. At least he wouldn't have to worry about hospital expenses, even if that troubled the manager's conscience. The boy sees that as an opportunity, as they do not know what may happen in the future. Since he was little, he knew it was necessary to have his own skills. Trusting that man is not a challenge, for the real challenge was to be strong to protect his father and, in passing, thank for the gift. Only the manager did not imagine that gift would be used on him. The boy had survived all these years without needing it. He should have at least sold it on the black market, but that is not what Jaryong would do. He revealed to the boy that he would pay the hospital costs anyway, and he always knew that. He had uncertainties at some point, but he always considered the possibility. He knew that the manager would not give up on his father, even if something happened. That's why he never hesitated to work for him. When the boy became his employee to be a smuggler, it was then that he thought he had given up on the promise he once made. But it was the boy who wished for this. He who asked for the opportunity. If it weren't with him, he would find another way. This removed the manager's doubt, who had always been intrigued by how easily a boy accepted that job. The promise he made to his father was not to turn his son into an adventurer, but even at his own peak, he did not usually listen to the boy's father, for the talent he had should not be wasted on a common life, especially since he hates this damned world they live in. The bastards who despised his father and forgot everything he had done for humanity. Even those who remained silent during this injustice wish for all of them to find out if hell exists. He said that even Zeke would not be able to defeat the dragon. The intention is good, but his methods are naive. It's not just humans who need determination to defeat the dragon. Those creatures are not stupid either. Finding them is very difficult, and if they are defeated one day, society may succumb. They are already well infiltrated. Determination is a positive thing, but all these people are just trash for having betrayed the protagonist's father. Even if the world ended tomorrow, these fools would not take back what they had done. Zeke is bound by the laws of society, and this prevents his plans to defeat the dragon from happening. He will end up paying a price for it. Soon, the devastation that his father avoided will happen one day, and the false hopes will be swept away. That's why he never pressured the boy to be an adventurer and handed him a paper. There are the details of a bank account in his name. It's years of deposits he made from his own earnings for the boy. He hoped he would become an adult first, so he would have the means to do what he wanted with his own life. He even thought about teaching the boy some skills to succeed in life, so he wouldn't have to become an adventurer, which is very dangerous. When he is available, he should enter into a contract to learn magic. Until then, he wished the boy would study, even if he considered it insignificant. Jaryong believes he could have been prevented by him from becoming an adventurer if he truly desired it that way. Indeed, he is not wrong, but the answer to that will remain in his own head. His thoughts are irrelevant. It was the same thing that happened 3 years ago. What is really important is Jaryong's will to decide what to do with his own life. These are the ruins of the ancient city of Yongsan. A woman walks among those ruins. It's time for them to have a better place to meet, since money is not a problem. The young man does not believe she was the one to suggest this idea, for she hardly comes to the meetings, but he agrees they should have a place that at least has hot water. The woman did not expect to see that man alone, since he is always accompanied by someone else. At the moment, the man who usually accompanies him has other duties, and the woman knows that too. That's why she praised him. Since he is without his bodyguard, she thought he would act like a child and go look for him. Maybe he is just holding back tears now. The man began to get irritated with this disrespect. He said that if she wants to find out if there is life after death, she just needs to keep talking. The woman found that funny, as the dog started barking due to the absence of its owner. She thought that attitude was too cute. Angrily, he warned that it wouldn't be a problem to fight her. Who is the reason for all the current problems? The woman also did not feel intimidated, saying that he always brings up the same subject, but another person ordered them to stop that immediately. His presence was enough to make Haran and the burly man calm down. They could fight later, but now they have a lot of work to do and need to finish soon. It would be a shame if they had more work because of the irresponsibility of the two. The burly man acknowledged that he was being stupid. He shouldn't have fallen for her provocation. The woman said that the burly man stayed alive because of this intervention, claiming that this man was ignoring her calls. But it seems that's not what happened. Since 4 days ago, he assumed he wouldn't need to give a response. But he was saying to end the rescue team. It wasn't necessary to make a request for that, and the plan was a success. The burly man said that only 12 people lost their lives at the event, and they even had the badass spotlight on someone else. The news keeps talking about these mysterious youths. It was the actions of these boys that prevented a public retaliation against the Adventurers Association. The vehicle containing the creature was not properly supervised, therefore it was stolen, causing that whole incident. They hired the media and paid the families affected by the disaster, redirecting public focus to the two young men. The woman said it would have been better to have dealt with them, but this man's dream is to become a terrorist. In this way, they will have the focus of the Adventurers Association. Something small like what happened wouldn't cause this outcome. But if they continued causing events like this, soon the association would be destroyed. And the burly man realized that it is important to keep the chaos going. So, they have something immediate to do now. Before responding, another person arrived, asking if everyone was there. They should have informed me before his arrival, as he believes it must have taken a while. The man said he wouldn't interrupt him while this guy was busy with his hobbies. But for him, that is not just a hobby, it is his job. Even though he can't hide that he enjoys what he does quite a bit. The burly man wants to know if this person is an adventurer. He learned that, despite being an adventurer, he is not that important. And that, in fact, he backstabs his allies. The hostage is calling for help. They are aware that this person tends to lure companions to increase his personal gains, disappearing into the shadows when that happens. The shadow is a secret place used by adventurers, within the dungeons. A safe hideout, with medicine and a place to rest. Its original purpose, at least, was that. But it has become a place to do as they please. The boy ordered the hostage to repeat the story he had told. That night, there would be a party with his companions inside the shadow. There would be some ordinary citizens on this occasion. The burly man was curious about this story, as the hostage was spending time with smugglers. And they ordered him to keep telling the story, as he hadn't finished. His boss has connections. He always brings different people, rich folks, celebrities, ordinary people. They anesthetize people with drinks or medication. They are nothing but addicts who go to the dungeons looking for different thrills. They really are a good place to do anything they want, so the outside world doesn't get involved. The hostage said he had no choice. He heard that his squad wasn't the only one doing this kind of absurdity. His captor said the hostage shouldn't be afraid, as he had told everything he wanted to hear. The problem is that his time was up, and it was time to say goodbye. They won't let anyone leave that place alive. What the world will know is that the monsters ended the lives of these people. It seems that this task will be quite interesting, but it will be strange that only the 4 are involved in this. The bandana-wearing boy wished Doryong was with them on this mission too, thinking that if things went wrong, they could end it all. But when it comes to lethality, the 4 are more than enough for the mission. The target is an attack squad looking to increase its influence. 2 gold level and 6 ranked, enough to have some fun. As soon as their bodies are found, the stench will show the world how rotten everything already is. A month had passed. The protagonist is almost reaching his destination. He is already out of the cast and his recovery is not complete. It would take another 2 weeks. During this time, his equipment will also be finished. And there is something else to be said too. Before hearing, he saw that his friend was already waiting. He didn't expect them to be the only ones using that place in the coming days. This explains the taxi fare, as the place is very far from the city. They only have these days to prepare for the exam. She learned that the protagonist would be busy next month and needs to help him soon. Jaryong told her that he found this person when he took off the cast. He forgot to inform her, because he also wants to help him prepare for the exam and seems like he will be very useful. While introducing the two, he was unable to notice that both were nervous due to shyness. That place has a complete Olympic-sized pool, besides all the necessary equipment for training, in a space for them to rest as well, with food and drink at will. That is the weight room, with equipment prepared for adventurers. The 5th floor is reserved for men, but if he wants to use the spa, he must go to the 4th floor. Jaryong doesn't believe that all of that belongs to her uncle. The girl warned that there's no need to be surprised, as among higher-level adventurers, it's common for them to be even more extravagant. When he isn't using the place, it's her opportunity to get permission for them to use the space. It was then that she asked, having forgotten what that guy was doing there too. Jaryong said that he is a friend. The girl asked him to be more discreet, as they can be overheard. She doesn't know why Cheolkang came with the protagonist, as even though they are in the same class, they are not classmates. Jaryong asked if the girl had tried talking to him, but that's not even a possibility for her. It's not just her class. Everyone avoids talking to him, who has a reputation for being very demanding, even if noble. As she was about to continue venting, Jaryong asked what his friend was doing. He said that he isn't there to have fun, so he should stop. The mountain of muscles came to him like an obedient boy, something completely unexpected for the girl, who saw that troglodyte apologize. The whole situation is indeed very unusual. She remembered that they had talked in the taxi about Seram. The mountain of muscles confirmed that he has no acquaintances at school, but that girl is scary. Even so, he thinks she must be nice. Jaryong now doesn't know if they are talking about the same person, as this isn't the Saren he knows. He doesn't pick up on social nuances very well, but he knows that this girl has been pursued by some people since the first day. But he has never seen her flinch in front of anyone at that school, always maintaining her head held high. He doesn't know how her academic performance is, but he's sure she must be a very resilient person. Maybe they can use this weekend for a group study. Saren is worried because he needs to prepare for the exam, but the protagonist doesn't even care about that. He needs to develop habits and gain knowledge, analyze situations and develop a plan. That's what he needs. But since they are in that place, they could use it in a more interesting way. Because in the last month, he had gotten stronger than ever. He managed to face talented people, learning things he could never have done alone, so they should take advantage of this opportunity to exchange knowledge. That way, everyone will gain in some way. His words may sound harsh, but he knows that these two are completely out of place in the school. And if he entered it, he would share information with his friends, and they should start doing that immediately. Saran even considered the possibility of doing that weekend. Jaryong warned her that she should think more about herself. School shouldn't be an easy place to perform, she understands those words, but remains worried about the test. Even if he passes, there's no one who can sponsor him within that school. She completely understands the situation, but doesn't think she can teach him anything. It was then that Jaryong asked the Mountain of Muscles if he understands magic. The guy is still in theoretical classes. That girl is good at it, but she made a point of saying that just because she knows how to use it doesn't mean she's good. Chilkang said that she could teach, as he has always been interested in learning. Saren still finds him very intimidating, and he believed he had managed to act naturally, not realizing he left the girl terrified. The group went to the training room. The Mountain of Muscles stayed outside to take a call from his parents. Jaryong said that they have all kinds of materials there, even clothes, and asked if he could take some home. Seeing that the plan had changed, Saren wanted to know what the protagonist had planned. She didn't imagine she would be forming a group with other people at that school, much less that this group would include Chilkang. Jaryong warned that despite being big, the guy is not scary at all and will make something clear. While they were talking, someone approached. They looked back to see who it was. The woman said that her bad feeling wasn't without cause. If they planned to use that place, she should have been informed, saying that Saron is indeed a very clumsy person. Completely startled, she didn't imagine Anisha would be there. The two began to argue about the possibility of using that place when the uncle wasn't around. Jaryong doesn't know who this blonde is. Anisha warned that their uncle wouldn't give special treatment to anyone. Saren explained to Jaryong that this is her cousin, Anisha. Even if they look worn out, they are the same age. The girl waved amicably and is relieved that her cousin brought a friend like this. The extra beside her is a second-year student. He was thinking of bringing some friends to train and get to know each other better. He is glad that more people are there too. From what he understood, his cousin would prefer a place with fewer people. It's better for her to leave to avoid misunderstandings. Siren was going to respond, but the protagonist intervened, saying that this is a great opportunity. They plan to have a study session. There is one more friend with them, who just went to make a call and asked her if it would be a problem. The extra wants to know where the boy is from, as he had never seen him at school. He mentioned that he studied at a common place before. He is in the first year and is called Jaryong, and at the moment he is preparing to take the transfer exam. Saren offered to help him that weekend. As he explains, he is belittled by the extras, who already consider him a complete weirdo. The bolder extra suggested that he should leave before it was too late. Anisha is holding back from humiliating her cousin, and the extra continues trying to intimidate the protagonist, saying that they are not normal people and that someone like him wouldn't last long there. He would just embarrass himself, so he should look for something else to do with his life. Before Jaryong had the chance to continue speaking, an extra surprised him, landing a punch on his face. He complained of pain. The extra's intention was not to seriously hurt him, because attacking a normal citizen is a severely punished crime. He just wanted to intimidate the boy, stopping his hand before reaching him. He is sure he had planned his strike with the utmost precision. The boy should have been startled by that hand. He began to think that he must have moved on purpose to get hit, meaning he must have read through the provocation. With his voice still trembling, Jaryong said he hoped they would be friendly and that they could even work together. but unfortunately he will have to act in self-defense and hopes the extra can understand that. That place is also filled with cameras that are positioned to avoid any blind spots, so adventurers can review the training later and see where they fail. Saren knows he was hit on purpose. Regardless of what happens, Jaryong must have a reason for it, and the cameras recorded that unjustified aggression. The extra is intrigued. He is still trying to understand that the boy will act in self-defense. He said he is very shy and introverted. When bad things happen, his sleep ends up being affected. The extra began to think that the victim is acting exaggeratedly, as he didn't even get hurt. Speaking even louder, he asked if Saren heard what the extra had said, that his victim conduct is exaggerated. It would be better if he called the police or even the school administration. That was enough to leave the extra terrified. Seeing that he needed to resolve this problem quickly, he asked if the boy wanted money, or if he really wanted to train with them. But Jaryong warned that everything he does from now on will be self-defense. If he doesn't return that punch, he might not be able to sleep at night. The extra ended up agreeing to this solution, because he believes this is the easiest way to solve this big problem. He believes the protagonist is just a mediocre human being who went to a mediocre school and must have mediocre strength. But the force of that punch was so brutal that it ended up rearranging the teeth in his mouth. Jaryong is really an excellent actor, as he began to behave as if he were impressed. That was a bit different from what the extra had promised. His instincts told him not to get hit by that punch. The bald guy didn't understand that, believing his friend should have let himself get hit. But the extra is sweating cold. His friends might think he dodged for fun, but if he had been hit, it would have been extremely regrettable. Jaryong began to provoke the extra, asking if he really intended to get hit, or if he was just a liar. Anisha asked him to tell the truth already. Returning the favor in that situation would be too exaggerated. It would be better to apologize and compensate the boy. It makes no sense for a fight to start now. With his underwear completely compromised, the extra realized that this was the best way out, saying he was wrong. But Jaryong wouldn't let things end that way. He suggested to the extra that they resolve it with their hands. Finishing his sentence, he disappeared from everyone's sight. Seeing that combat was imminent, he was already prepared to fight. Identifying the offensive approach of the boy who tried to intimidate him. Believing he had seen his movement, he attacked. But he had only hit his image, leaving his body completely unprotected. That opening was enough to have his jaw crushed, but the blow was weak on purpose, as his goal was not to hurt the body, but to destroy the ego. Jaryong had returned the blow in a devastating manner, as he had shown his complete superiority, leaving the extra deeply irritated. With his pride wounded, he began to strike. But he was unable to hit his target in any way. Jaryong continued to dodge effortlessly, until the extra finally believed he had him cornered. But he still does not know the extent of that boy's abilities, having his attack completely repelled. It was so fast that the extra is still trying to understand. Jaryong asked what would happen if he hit him in the body a few times. Seizing the opportunity, he lightly kicked the extra's leg, who ended up falling to the ground, having his pride obliterated once again. Those watching this fight took a while to understand. They believe the veteran must have lost on purpose. Jaryong now doubts if this guy really studies at the same school as the others. He was expecting much more from that fight. He even considered that they could train seriously, saying he was glad the extra took it in stride, since there are recordings of him starting the fight. But that poor soul refuses to shake the protagonist's hand. If this is the conclusion of the fight, he can only lament. He was hoping it would be as difficult as it was with that girl. If he had known it would be easy, he would have taken it even lighter. Asking his friend to keep the recordings just in case, she said it wasn't necessary. But he asked if the stupid girl, the recording isn't for him. It's her who should take a look, because she will be able to see with absolute clarity. He was limiting his own speed to match the mediocrity of the extra, who was far below expectations. Only now did she realize that Jaryong did that so she could learn something. The boy just seized the opportunity, realizing that the person who stalks her at school is that girl in the dress. Moreover, it became clear that she does not intend to hide the fact that she hates her friend. Completely unaware of their situation at school, but from what she heard from Chaelkang, she knows that she does not bow to anyone. Making things clear, he is not a proud person, but he also does not let idiots take advantage of him. They have a secret agreement, but they also need to think about their reputation, and they should not remain isolated. While he was talking to her, he heard a strange noise. They both looked back to see what was happening. It was the extra who remained very irritated. In this way, the protagonist would be caught off guard. Anisha believes it is already too much humiliation for one day, creating a magical being that was able to hold the extra with just one hand. Their veteran should at least maintain composure. Now she was forced to do so. Saren was quite intimidated by the size of the power her cousin possesses, but that ended up producing something unusual. Jaryong was able to feel something different in his own body. The boy remembered what happened 3 weeks ago. He was opening a package from the hospital. seeing what he had received. He wasn't expecting much, but his clothes look like trash, and it seems he won't be able to use that item again. When the user's life is in danger, their body is coated with magic to prevent the worst. In that moment of danger, he didn't imagine that the item had been activated while still in his pocket. That item was crucial for him to leave the event without more serious injuries. But the power he felt right after that, he doesn't know if it was also a side effect. It's easier to believe that than to think he has a hidden power. Since the item is quite expensive, it's plausible that it has another type of effect. Only then did it hit him. The boy had lost a very expensive item. Looking more closely at his hand, he is sure it's the same feeling he had last time. He doesn't know why it's happening now, but he is certain it wasn't a result of Enkel's blood. Anisha asked how much her cousin had offered and suggested he switch sides, as she would pay triple and a bit more. Saren told her to stop playing with people, as those offers are offensive. But the girl said it's not a joke, she just made a valid offer for a potential client. Even though he is inferior, he was able to defeat a second-year student at the school. It's strange that a prodigy like him isn't known. There must be a reason he didn't enter the school, but a good part of the problems is solved with money. And that's all Saren has to offer and nothing more. Good connections, reputation, and talent are not notable on her part. The girl was going to suggest that her cousin is offering her own body, but the protagonist said she offers him patience. And there is someone trying to sabotage her friend's career. He doesn't know how difficult this experience must be. But are you sure that the person who talks behind her back, causing problems, must be a mediocre person who is nothing more than a trash can? Since they are sisters, Jaryong assumes she must know who that person is. After being passively provoked, she undid her ability. She has no choice but to cancel that week's meeting. The girl who came with them said they had already invited other classmates. Anisha said her friend is too kind, as she just witnessed all this and still has the audacity to worry about others. Those who are coming are school seniors and will take care of that extra on the floor. This was just a way to create connections with the student council, but it seems she just wasted her time. It would be better if they forgot what happened that day. Saran made a point of telling the protagonist that they are cousins. If he isn't bought with money, he surely must have something in mind that he desires, and it's good that he has decided about it, as it will interfere with his school life. Jaryong was going to say something, but he was pulled by the arm. It's his friend asking him to stop. He wanted to provoke a bit more of that mage. Maybe he could get a fight against her. Saren wants to prevent him from gaining the spotlight from that woman, as she knows she has no limits. Now that he has her attention, hell is about to begin, and the gossip will just be the start. Jaryong realized that strange feeling had disappeared now. It vanished along with that girl's magic. It could be that this power dirties when he feels magic. Saren saw that he was quite distracted and asked if his friend was okay. The boy is now sure he needs to learn to use magic immediately, and the extra continues to feel pain from what had happened. That's when Cheolkang spoke to him. He thought he had been friendly, but his demeanor is really threatening to anyone. Even the extra knows this student's reputation and doesn't understand what he is doing there. Jaryong approached him to apologize. He confessed he wanted to test something but didn't want to embarrass him. That was the extra's own fault. He acknowledged his own flaws and went further, saying he wasn't able to do anything. He was quite arrogant without knowing who his opponent was. The hero who prevented a great tragedy is relieved that nothing worse happened. Jaryong doesn't know if he would have won if it had been a real fight. The extra was thoughtful, but the boy said they aren't so different in terms of strength and speed. But he was able to notice that his opponent was emotionally out of control, performing attacks that were too simple, so it was easy to read through his strikes. While the extra was out cold, Jaryong watched their fight a few times. The weight distribution of his opponent is a great indicator of what he will do in the fight. Maybe he is already aware of this, but he made a point of organizing the material so the extra could look at it. Saron is sure this will leave their senior quite surprised. That kind of assessment can't be achieved just with money. It's only possible because Jaryong is extremely detail-oriented and has incredible intuition. And indeed, the security guard is perplexed. He can hardly find the words. Jaryong said he doesn't care about what happened, as they had already resolved everything and holds no grudges. They are there to train and hope this information can help them resolve everything definitively, informing that after he finishes watching the video, he could leave his number and he would send him the complete material. Jaryong doesn't believe the extra's friends abandoned him there, knocked out. Cheolkang also found that attitude despicable. As a lot had happened, they need to refocus and start practicing magic. Mana is just fuel to use spells. Each of their magical statuses represents the quality of that fuel. Jaryong didn't imagine it was this way. His friend explained, humans and elves have basically the same amount of mana. Reusing the analogy, coal doesn't burn the same way as a pile of paper. The quality of the fuel is crucial to determine which spells can be used. She is at level C, the minimum for those who wish to become mages, as it is necessary for attack and enhancement spells. For those boys, what they have is enough for self-enhancement spells. Jaryong is already very excited and asked if they would be able to learn all this in a weekend. Saren will never get used to this enthusiasm. The beginning takes 1 to 2 weeks, but someone said they could help them with that, as long as they were comfortable with this idea. This is the specialty of that poor extra, performing spells that enhance the user themselves. After a few moments of practice, Jaryong managed to produce a level F enchantment, a small flame of fire. He was quite surprised by his own progress, but the extra warned him not to get too excited yet. It would be strange for someone so talented not to be able to do this, as it is a simple skill. A bit happier, he asked if he should make the flame more intense or if he should learn to produce water. He was advised to keep focusing on that flame, especially on its interior. Feeling one's own magic is a very stupid piece of advice. It's hard to feel something he is not used to doing, but now things are different, as he was able to extract mana and transform it into fire. This is the true first step. For magic was awakened for the first time, he should explore this sensation to be able to feel better. Keeping the flame lit, he must feel the mana flowing through his body. Only then will he be able to notice what had happened differently. Even the extra was not expecting all that progress. At worst, they would need the entire weekend. Jaryong said he could feel something sharp yet delicate, like static electricity in the lower abdomen, spreading throughout his body. His instructor confirmed that this is the sensation, impressed that it took him just over a minute to achieve it. The feeling is incredible, as if his whole body were made of circuits. He imagined there were about 50, only to realize they are in the hundreds. The human body has 2 fundamental parts that deal with mana, the center, located in the abdomen, and the adjacent circuits, responsible for distributing it. There are a total of 127. Saren asked if the muscle-bound boy is capable of playing any kind of instrument. He mentioned that he played the piano until he was 10, but he believes he doesn't have a knack for being a musician. She said it will be easy then, as what she will teach him is very similar to playing the piano, showing him a level D spell, a sphere of lightning that is not lethal but can paralyze the enemy. She didn't need to perform any kind of enchantment or complicated movement to cast that spell. Magic is not as complicated as people imagine it to be. Most enchantments happen without the user's body needing to move. It's like playing the piano, just pressing specific keys in a specific order, at the right time. The circuits in the body are like the piano keys, and magic is the sheet music being read in those circuits. It's all a matter of timing and precision. That's how magic is used. He asked what happens if he gets the timing of that sheet music wrong, as he is worried he might see some kind of side effect. Simple spells are conjured even if small mistakes are made, but the quality is altered. Saren couldn't help but notice that his expression is frightening when he is focused. The harder the spell, the greater the chances of failure if it is cast incorrectly. As she said this, the electricity began to grow significantly. In this case, there are consequences for failure in execution. Even a spell like that, which is simple, can leave its user paralyzed. More complicated spells can exact an even greater price, like life. That's why mages need to be protected on the battlefield, as focusing on execution in moments of stress is harder than one might think. She knows that the boy already feels his own mana as he has been practicing for a while, but he is still not able to feel the circuits in his body. They would start from the beginning. Since he is a tank, he doesn't need refined knowledge, just needs to know the circuits used for enhancement. Jaryong always knew that the two would get along very well once they had the chance to get to know each other better. Seeing that he stood up, the instructor asked if Jaryong wanted to go to the bathroom, but the boy said he no longer sees the point in continuing to practice. The veteran warned him that he needs to keep up with the exercises to be able to feel the mana flowing through his own body. Jaryong believes he already understands how it works. He feels exactly where the circuits are in his body, each one of them. His veteran was impressed. Then, a boy showed that there are 2 in his hand, totaling 6 in his right arm. In his left arm, he has 8 in total, and if he counts the ones in his shoulder, there are 10 in total. That precision left the veteran completely surprised. He is sure he taught the boy very well, but the speed of this kind of progress is absurd. Saren realized that Jaryong had once again done Jaryonging, so he asked his new bro to continue teaching the next steps. The boy needs some time to understand that the kid is truly talented. There are small differences. All monoid species have a similar number of circuits. Each of them is already known. In the next stage of education, he showed his closed fist when there was nothing inside. Taking a deep breath, he asked him to pay attention. He had strengthened his body. This increases the speed of reflexes and the endurance of the user himself. The boy had to notice the difference in his instructor's body. He feinted a blow to the boy's face, intending to show what had changed. Indeed, strength and speed were enhanced. If he had been hit, a broken nose would be the least of his problems. The veteran is impressed that the boy noticed this. Even without catching his eyes, he said that last year he was at the end of the line. He had a lot of confidence in his basic attributes, but he lacked finesse when it came to utilizing his full potential. Jaryong realized that this is the reason he developed fortification. Indeed, the veteran sought to enhance what was already positive. His luck is having an aptitude for magic. After practicing a lot, he sought to learn spells he could use. Eventually, discovering that fortification would be something interesting for him, depending on how they are combined, it is possible to extract more from his own abilities. With multiple enhancements, he can seek synergy among them, aiming for a greater strength that would be achieved naturally. This is one of the possibilities. Talented people in magic perfect 2 or 3 enchantments, unlike him who knows more than a dozen. As a result, today he is capable of leading a team, but people at the top look down on him for using enhancement spells. That's why he was so excited when someone popular invited him to be in that place. Even if it was merely social, a great formality, he was still quite happy, as he wanted to be approved by his peers. That's why he ended up being a jerk to the protagonist, as he desired approval. In the end, he knows what it's like to be in both positions, being the jerk and being the victim. Even if it's a bit late for that, he apologized for the foolishness he had done. Jaryong asked him to forget about that subject soon, for it is good that, for the next 58 hours, he is prepared to teach everything he knows. They ended up training for 4 whole days. Early in the morning, they went to breathe fresh air. Jaryong enjoys that feeling. Saran says that, even young, he already seems like an old man. She thought it was a joke, but is impressed that they didn't sleep during the weekend. The protagonist said they are still too young to feel tired. The truth is that their stamina level is very high. She is sure that the last few days were very productive. Training with talented people was extremely beneficial. Jaryong said that if they were near the city, they could have eaten soup with rice, something his colleague had never tried. The veteran asked if any of them were going to Gangnam, as he would train in that city. Jaryong said he was going the same way, stating that he wouldn't need Siren's ride, who was going in another direction. That might sound a bit strange, but he is very grateful for the friends. It was the best weekend he had since he was 5 years old. He doesn't know if he will see them again before the exam, as he will be busy preparing, and he wishes for his friends to do well too. Especially the girl. If she fails, it will be a reason for him to tease her, and he will make sure to bring it up, asking Chael Kang to take care of the girl and be kind to her. Finally, the small group says goodbye. Saren also thanked the veteran for his help, as she learned a lot from him. The boy said it is mutual, and hopes to see each other again. Finally, a taxi continues its journey, but those two still feel awkward when they are alone, as they both consider themselves intimidating, even if they don't realize it. They were lucky to avoid traffic. Even though he had already said this, he repeated that that weekend was amazing. He is happy to have learned a special move. The veteran said it's not all that. That move is just an idea. Maybe it won't even work in practice. Jaryong disagrees with him, believing he will be able to master it and even use it in the revenge match. The veteran doesn't even know what that is, but Jaryong would inform him about his results. He doesn't know when he will see the boy again, but he said they should go out to eat together when they can. That will only happen if the protagonist manages to get into a better school, as he wouldn't want to hang out with people who go to normal places. Jaryong understood what those words really meant, and he thanked the veteran for the encouragement. Finally, he felt the fatigue. He would stay home to get some sleep, but one person said he didn't have time to go to school, much less to sleep. The manager was already waiting for him, had already contacted the school, and said that Jaryong would be absent for an entire month. He shouldn't even be surprised by this, as he is preparing for the transfer exam. He told the boy to pack his bags, grab some underwear and t-shirts. He immediately noticed that the boy had learned to use magic. He is at the basic level, but he can feel his circuits activated. He said he needed to continue preparing for the exam. The manager is proud of that, but this basic level won't be very useful. He asked not to be misunderstood. The boy hadn't wasted his time or anything like that. He even praised him for it. But he needs to make things clear. This is not a private lesson. It's a test. He should be prepared and determined to live like a true adventurer. To test his resilience, the manager will push him to the limit. One thing he is sure of, he will make the boy come to the conclusion that he is not as talented as he thinks. Now he should hurry and pack his bags soon. He should take few clothes. If he needed more, they would come back to get them. He wants to know where they are going, and if it's a place the manager used to go when he was active. But he has already sold the facilities he used and is trying to open something, which the boy can't even imagine what it is. But that is the weapon, and he will use it. He doesn't know how they knew his address, but the package was sent to his home. He finally managed to open it and asked the boy to take a look. If he is wrong, he will sue them. The staff he used to use is very different. The manager thought it looked the same, only the color had changed. Jaryong is sure that it wasn't just the color that changed. It seems much lighter, and the grip has improved a lot. But the manager is in a hurry for them to leave. Whether the equipment improved or not, the boy will find out soon. for he will make sure there will be plenty of opportunities for him to test his weapon. Jaryong is quite anxious about that, but inside the forest he quickly changed his mind. That training is not going to be easy at all. The creature before his eyes has a danger level of 4 stars. He was taught to run if he encountered a creature of that level. That teaching applied to his life as a smuggler, as he had to survive. But as an adventurer, things are different. He should inform the manager if he thinks he is going to give up or die, as he will come to change his diapers. It has been 6 months since the last time the manager saw the boy's skills. A carnivorous tree like that is even more dangerous for close-range fighters if the boy hasn't improved in that time. It is possible that he could die in this fight, which would mean the end of all this nonsense. Jaryong needs to focus on the creature, for its attacks are fast and destructive. Even if he is completely focused, if he took 1 second longer, he would no longer be alive. It is the second 4-star monster he faces, and the premise for the battle is the same. Mistakes will not be tolerated in this fight, as the price for them is life. And this time he doesn't have an ally to count on for help, which makes things really difficult. He needs to end this immediately, using everything he has. The difference between 3 and 4 stars is the intelligence of the creature, which also varies according to the species. Most creatures have the capacity to make decisions similar to humans, and in some cases, they are smart enough to deceive people. The creature deliberately lured the hunter closer. The manager knew that something like this would eventually happen. His surprise was realizing that the boy's attack had been devastating. He didn't even understand what had happened, as his staff had turned into an energy scythe. The manager was so impressed that he forgot for a moment that he is a chronic smoker. But that blade that had appeared is made entirely of energy, and soon it began to disappear. The boy didn't understand how his weapon really works. The manager wants to know how he was able to activate it, but Jaryong also can't say. He hadn't even read the manual. To clear up some doubts, he asked if the boy was feeling lethargic or if he felt tired when moving. He said he was a bit out of breath, but that might have been caused by his surprise and not by fatigue. The manager didn't feel any magic. It could have been the weapon's ability. The mechanism of that thing is not exceptional, but an old technology, common in the old guard. This type of weapon comes at a cost. The emergence of that blade consumes stamina, which is why this technology has become outdated. But, judging by the impact of the blade, it's strange that the boy is almost not tired. In any case, it's excellent news. He said that if it weren't for the equipment, the boy would have learned an interesting lesson. He is already aware of the opening he had given. And the manager said he didn't expect him to win in any way. He doesn't think that way because he is underestimating the boy. It's the exact opposite of that. He knows the boy is talented and must already be at the level of gold-class adventurers. Being praised by the manager leaves him scared. But that is not a compliment. Besides his own father, the manager knows at least a dozen people stronger than the boy. And of those people, more than half perished at the hands of a weak creature. Jaryong felt that his life was at risk. That creature is still alive. He even thought it could be another one. Realizing he was able to cut it in half, but the creature had regenerated. He needs to make sure to finish it off this time. His attacks hit the target, cutting off one of the creature's arms. He saw that the tip of his staff had now transformed into a hammer. The manager finally confirmed the functioning of that equipment. The user's base determines the weapon that will manifest, an incredible efficiency. It may even seem random, but it is perfect equipment for this boy. After taking a beating, the creature became quite enraged, and its arm had completely regenerated. It doesn't matter if his equipment is good. If the strategy is poor, he has no chance of victory, especially when there is a time limit. The cigarette had already been completely consumed, just like the boy's stamina. He is at his physical limit, and the creature before him remains completely alive, launching an attack that would certainly be fatal. But the manager wouldn't let that happen. He did all this while lighting another cigarette. He said that the boy wouldn't be able to dodge the attack in his current condition. It was game over for him, asking if he had any objections. Jaryong tried to destroy any part that seemed to be a weakness, but nothing worked. He asked what he should have done. The manager said he also couldn't say. It would have been better if the boy had run away. He thought it was a joke, but the manager was dead serious. Running away and taking it to a place where it can't regenerate is the best strategy against this enemy. There are 3 ways to defeat that carnivorous tree. The first is to take the monster to a place where it cannot absorb nutrients. If it is in a place where it can absorb nutrients through the surface, it will regenerate forever. A rocky terrain or the inside of a mine would prevent that, and the boy would have easily defeated it. But a thought like that never crossed his mind. He has to look for the weaknesses of his enemies. It's the only way to deal with things. Jaryong didn't want to interrupt, but something dangerous was happening. The creature was destroying the barrier, and the manager seemed not to care at all. Apparently, he really doesn't have a knack for protective spells. As its flames grew, he said that this is the second way to defeat the creature, burning it completely, with a spell of level being or higher. If Jaryong were a fire specialist mage, he would have easily defeated the creature. That's why the danger level of the creature is 4 stars. It is weak to fire. But until he realizes this, that creature is very dangerous in close combat. And regular fire is also not enough to defeat it. A military-grade grenade would be needed to inflict damage. Many people were defeated for this to be discovered. This knowledge cost the lives of several people. Creatures that are now defeated with simple strategies have claimed many lives in the past. Several prodigies perished prematurely. The manager wants to know how the boy feels after being defeated for the first time. Before he could answer, the manager said that the feeling must be horrible. It's not like losing to a person in a duel. The feeling is much worse. That's the price of being an adventurer. The price to be paid can be a small wound or a forced retirement. But it can be worse, like losing someone you love. Knowing you are alive at the expense of another person is a feeling too painful. He doesn't wish for the boy to go through that. Losing one's dignity is sometimes a very interesting option. In any case, the training is over for today. He wants to know if the boy can run for a few hours. The inside of the dungeon is different from its external space. It can be several times larger than expected, and in that particular place, the area is as large as the entire country. The run left him exhausted, and the manager asked him to enjoy the view of the place. And indeed, despite being very dangerous, the dungeon is quite beautiful. Creatures of 3 stars there are at the base of the food chain. Alone, the boy wouldn't last half an hour. For the next 2 weeks, he will train during the day and be protected at night. He will be taught in the last 2 weeks. But he will have to protect himself. If he can use everything he learns to last a month in the forest, he will have passed the test. He can give up if he wishes. Smiling, Jaryong is already lamenting spending only a month in that place. Time passed, and finally, the day of the exam arrived. Saren was worried, as he ignored all her calls during that time, and the boy still hadn't arrived. He is surprised that she waited for him on the street. Saren was about to give her friend a lecture, but seeing his state, she was quite surprised, wanting to know where he had been. He apologized for ignoring her. He was in a place with no phone signal. He asked if something had happened. Recognizing what might seem a bit strange, he needed to cut his own hair. That's why he must look a bit different now. He didn't want to make her worry so much. He said he would get ready soon, but she has many questions to ask. There was something inside the car. Saren was about to touch her friend. That's when she had a strange feeling. That person looked completely different. Jaryong turned to talk to her. The girl had instantly stepped back. He apologized, as he had gotten into the habit of reacting when something approached from behind. Sweating a lot, Saren said he didn't need to apologize for that. He had completely forgotten about the clothes he was supposed to wear. As he spent the whole month training, adapting to his new weapon, he is quite anxious about the exam. That was the first time Saren felt such intense, malicious intent coming from a person. But that wasn't what impressed her. She had seen that before in her colleague. What really surprised her is that now it didn't feel different from the sensation of a monster. The clothes had served the boy very well, who praised their quality a lot. They must have been very expensive. If they had time, they could have made refined adjustments, as small tweaks in quality material make all the difference. But there's nothing they can do now. Still, he remains quite motivated. As it is a test, Saren believes he should be a bit more cautious. But the boy wasn't talking about the test. He was talking about studying at this new school, as the test will be held there, and he had never entered that place. It is located on a small mountain where there used to be a park, before the cataclysm that changed everyone's life on the planet. The danger level of this region is high. It is the highest place in all of Korea. It used to be a dangerous dungeon. 30 years ago, a joint effort from the country along with the Adventurers Association completely cleared the place. The best hunters were gathered for this. Participation was entirely voluntary, but none of them backed out. It took a whole year of planning, which required physical and economic investments. And what was the result of all this planning? The mission had been a complete success, celebrated by all citizens, not just from Korea, but from the entire world. The subsequent problem was how they would take advantage of that space, until one of the hunters made an interesting suggestion: to build a school in that place, as there was already a need for a center to train new adventurers, and they needed a space where these future students could be trained and indoctrinated. But finding the right space wasn't easy. The ownership of that land was given to the adventurers who risked themselves to gain control of it. Even though the story isn't well known, if it weren't for that person's donation, crucial for clearing the dungeon, that school would have never existed. Jaryong had never been there and is sure he isn't the only one who wants to know that space. Seeing that they were on the highway, he didn't expect the school to be so far away. A lot happened in the last month. She asked if he knows an attack squad called J. Several of the protagonist's colleagues are fans of that team. He was shocked to find out that they had all died. Their refuge was invaded. Dangerous monsters entered and attacked them. At first, it seemed like a tragedy. But several drugs were found at the place, along with the bodies of celebrities, which sparked a huge public debate. In the news, public apologies keep being aired. Several people are involved in the scandal. Public opinion is quite divided. To clean their own image, the Hunters Association started publicizing their plans. That's why the test location had changed. He will be made in the Pangyo Labyrinth, a place the protagonist already knows. The second level, A dungeon that was completed, the former home of the infamous dragon Vasuka. Meanwhile, inside the forge located at the Jinseong Company headquarters, Zeke went there to talk to the blacksmith who had consumed all his drinks. It had been a long time since he last drank, so he ran out very quickly. Human's ability to make alcohol is terrible, and he wants to know why he is being visited and if there are any news about the boy. Zeke settled in to ask about the labyrinth, as he knows it helped humans 20 years ago. He remembers that. They wanted to develop a suitable place to train hunters, but he said it was a waste of time. But Zeke wants to know the details. Dragons are possessive about certain things. Once they find a target, they create a huge ambition around it. Vasuka is famous for liking labyrinths. Even though he is powerful, his nest is confusing and complicated. He used all techniques to make it as complicated as possible, using knowledge from various races. There is no way to take advantage of what the dragon had done. Zeke believed the place was safe. The dragon kidnapped several dwarves to complete the labyrinth. He doesn't know how the humans managed to defeat him. But I'm sure it wasn't inside the labyrinth, as that would be impossible. Even 20 years later, I'm sure the humans only reached the surface of the place, as if it were an iceberg. Despite saying there is nothing wrong, the place must be completely unpredictable. Zeke is sure that testing there is a mistake. And if he went there to talk to the Titan, it's because some foolish decision had been made. They might end up getting lucky, and even a tragedy could be used to make them value life from then on. Who knows, some lucky one might conquer this dungeon, and Jaryong is impressed with what he sees. The candidates are already gathering to start the test. That is a labyrinth that constantly changes shape. Since it is the first time it is being used for a test, no one has much information about it. Apparently, Anisha is really trying to make things difficult. The boy feels he is being watched. Approximately 20 people are there keeping an eye on him. He doesn't know what Anisha told them, but it definitely wasn't good. Saren is completely unable to perceive what is happening. His perception is limited. The boy learned last month what it feels like to be targeted. It's like opening a window on a hot day. But that wasn't the only thing he learned last month. He also learned not to be seen as a target, making potential predators sure that they are actually the prey. Apparently, he will have to wish good luck to his competitors. There is just under an hour left until the exam starts. A meeting is underway. The president of the Adventurers Association is pleased with the changes that have occurred, thanking the help of the school director. But he made it clear that he is not completely in favor of it, considering it a big joke that they did this to divert public attention from the last incident. And he believes he is not the only one who thinks this way in this meeting. And if the president wants to thank someone, he should do it for the one benefiting from this situation. She is Seo Yura, the president of the School of Warriors Board of Directors. The woman wishes they could understand the situation, which had been widely discussed with the board, but the man disagrees with her. There is not much to be done now. Recognizing that she must maintain her ranking position due to politics, another woman noticed that the atmosphere in the meeting is very tense. The bald man warned that the elderly man is going too far. That test is stupid, made for stupid people. He doesn't need to react this way. Only the elderly man did not like those words, and he began to look at Younggil very seriously. He said that he must be demented, or has forgotten what happened in the last 30 years. If that's the case, it's better he shuts up. The president says that the elderly man is not wrong to feel concerned about the current situation, but if he wants to resolve it with violence and not dialogue, she would be very pleased. The tension is high, and these two have never gotten along in life. Everyone there is prepared for the worst. What calmed them down was an unexpected factor. A student who has nothing to do with this and who was introducing himself to everyone. The president of the association hopes that these people can remain calm. He knows that some there would like to complain about the circumstances, recognizing that the only person they should complain to is himself. The meeting ends and they leave the room. The elderly man cannot believe the audacity of the president of the association, who is a little puppy in that woman's hands. He asked if the teacher considered his words aggressive. He said they were quite so and thanked him for his honesty. Since the woman has authority, he was already expecting a scenario like this, but this time she crossed the line. When it comes to the graduates, she manages to treat them very well, as they are the future of the nation. But this ends up harming those boys, who receive a lot for having done very little. Soon, the true talents stop appearing, as the new adventurers are very spoiled. They are fish in an aquarium, being fed and complacent with those who control them. Few know the true circumstances of that place, and he is sure that privileged information was given to important people, whose children will be taking the exam. Now he wants to know if the teacher thinks he was exaggerated. That woman is trying to take his school, in fact theirs, a direct affront. The teacher will not allow this to happen, as this exam is not subject to cheating. His only concern is for the student's safety. But that woman does not care about that. If the worst happens, they will need to act quickly. Not to mention that he didn't mention that feeling, but he is sure everyone is aware. A powerful thirst for blood. But it is not up to them to discuss this now. There are more urgent demands. They do not know who this student is yet, but he definitely has potential and did that on purpose. The elderly man knows that the teacher is recognized by the students for being too strict. They are not usually passionate during exams, but he really hopes that this boy passes. It has been a while since he wished to teach someone personally. In this test, they need to find a treasure and take it to a defined location. They must do this in complete safety. The danger in the maze has been calibrated to incapacitate the students. The rules are even simpler than those expected by the boy. Even so, there is a life risk, so the candidates must be cautious. The condition for passing is 1 treasure per candidate, and inside the maze there are more chests than participants. It is possible that all of them will pass. The candidates began to get confused, wondering what would happen if everyone passed. Apparently, this is a new rule exclusive to that year. With the introduction completed, the participants can enter the maze, according to the number they received. They can pick up their equipment from storage. Since he is without a cell phone, Jaryong will need to figure things out on his own. He saw someone being chased. Some bullies are oppressing a boy. All of this because they accidentally bumped into each other. And that boy has one of his legs injured. He was not the one who bumped into the others. Even so, they continue to bother him, but one of the extras noticed something. Jaryong does not care about them, but he asked them not to block the way. The extras tried to intimidate him, but one of them had already lost his own underwear. Since there are rules there, Jaryong knows he cannot do much, but he can make him feel scared and warned that he might accidentally cross paths with them in the maze. That could be problematic. These words made the blonde boy immediately destroy his underwear. As he left, the extra was updated by his colleague about the identity of that person. Finally, Jaryong returns the book to the boy who was being bothered. He thanked him for the help, as he knows it wasn't necessary to do that. As he said goodbye to the boy, he was worried about what he has on his leg, as the test will be dangerous. But he was intrigued by the book he was carrying, as it doesn't make much sense in that context.